in Azerbaijan. They go out. We wait for them to go out for the drivers before... Oh, it's a long hold here for... As the lights come on now here in Azerbaijan. As the lights come on now here in Azerbaijan. They go out. We wait for them to go out for the drivers before... Oh, it's a long hold here for all of these guys as we finally do get underway, and it does look like a poor start for Vexit indeed. That's Luca straight into the lead, and Dougie Falcons challenging as well.
Invincible.
Here in Azerbaijan. They go out. We wait for them to go out for the drivers before... Oh, it's a long hold here for all of these guys as we finally do get underway, and it does look like a poor start for Vexit indeed. That's Luca straight into the lead, and Dougie Falcons challenging as well. Vexit going to be falling down to third, but he's managed to hold off the Alfa Romeo of AJ, who's had a poor start, and Rainbow, who is challenging him now into turn 2, but doesn't want to stick his nose up the inside there. The Alpha's going side by side through turn 2. It's so hard to do, but they have managed to pull it off without any tears there between AJ and A2 UK. But A2 going to try and make his teammates opening lap even worse by taking him. Will just slot in behind in the end for turn 3. Kenners is he's retired from the session. Don't know what happened to him. Maverick's all the way at the back as well, as we have a virtual safety car here for Kenners' retirement. AJ and A2 still within that 1 second mark, and comfortably within 1 second at the front is Dougie Falcons. This is going to be a bit of a wave by here for the race leaders. Luca cannot do anything to fight back right now. The back straight, or the front straight, sorry, is just too long. Through turn 6 and into turn 7 we go at Tim and Simons once again. This is the third time they've been battling, and once again there's contact as the Renault, forced into the wall just a little bit there, will be forced to concede the position as he is struggling with that damage. The high-speed section of the track, this is going to be at least 3 wide between these guys right now. Who is going to be the victor once we get to turn 1? As the 2 Alfa Romeos are battling up ahead. A2 UK's managed to get that position, but here it is, the 3 wide moment. It's Racebug on the inside. He has the best line for turn 1, and he does take it, but around the outside, sweeping past goes the AlphaTauri of Valu, who holds on and now claims P8 away from Wheeze, who is struggling so much in that Renault, going side by side through turn 2 yet again. He'll have been having flashbacks there, but he kept it out of the wall this time around. Racebug trying to maintain the position ahead of the Renault driver, but just because he has front wing damage doesn't mean that Wheeze wants to concede the position, as he's still battling, but he has to back out of it in the end. He doesn't have enough downforce, and now Patrick Sipos needs to be able to try and navigate the Renault up ahead. Iceman as well.
Yeah, and Vexit got past Rainbow into turn 1. And don't forget, these two, they're both from Sidemax Motorsport. You can see the SMM in front of their names. I wonder if Luca will make this difficult or not. I don't think he will. Luca, will he pull over? Ooh. Yes, he does.
So now these guys, the battle between Vexit, Rainbow, A2 UK and AJ has been reignited by Luca, holding them up a little bit in this Haas on those medium tires with that front wing damage as well. I don't think he's going to be so kind in letting Rainbow by further back. Wheeze racing, there's all kinds of cars all over the track right now. It's Patrick around the outside, but they're 3 wide yet again. AJ's already into the pits in the Alpha, and who's it going to be taking the advantage here between Valu and Patrick? Patrick trying to go around the outside. We expected this to be the battle for the lead. At the moment, it's just the battle for 8th, and it's Valu who holds on to that position for now. So the cars ahead is a bit of a different matter, but he's still only losing about a second a lap or thereabouts. He'd lose a lot more. Safety car coming out, and I wonder why that is. I can't see any obvious incident.
Yeah, just keep an eye on Dougie, because Dougie's got fresher tires than Zippos, and we have seen carnage in safety car restarts in Division 2, Division 1. Patrick has gone.
Patrick has absolutely pulled the trigger, and it seems to have caught Dougie out here. Of course, if you pull the trigger early, you run the risk of getting slipstreamed down into turn 1, but if you catch the car behind off guard, you should be okay, and that's exactly what has happened here. Vex, it's not close enough to Dougie either, so Mr. Falcons will hold on to P2 for now. Rainbow in fourth, seems to have a pretty poor restart as well. Lucky and Calcifer are battling further back as Elon Tusk has had to go into the pits. So it gets even worse because, of course, he damaged his front wing in that incident. So even more pain for Elon. And AJ, who I mentioned struggling under the safety car as well, he's fallen down to the back of the order. Looks like he's been shuffled out wide through turn 2. I don't know if he locked up or whether it was in an incident, but now he's having to pull off some kind of three-point turn here. Actually manages to spin it around pretty nicely there in the Alpha, but back going in P18.
I reckon he got tagged as here comes A2 in the other Alfa Romeo down the inside of Simons. Oh, this is great.
Oh, no. Simons clunking the inside curb. That forced him into A2 UK, bouncing across the road. He had no control of his car anymore, and that forced A2 into the wall. But A2 seems to have avoided any front wing damage there, as Vexit now has lost it. What's happened to the other McLaren? He's damaged his front wing in the castle section. Has he held up anyone else in doing so? It looks like everyone else was able to navigate past him. Racing Point driver, I still don't think that will dampen his spirits too much, as now Calcifer and A2 UK into turn 16 we go. It's such a tricky braking zone, and maybe even the switchback here from A2 UK. That is audacious to pull that switchback off there. That's incredible. I did not think I'd ever see that, as Calcifer gets pretty much pantsed through there. He'll have to fight back though, and he will have the slipstream on A2 UK all the way up towards turn 1, so he might well be able to get his revenge on the Alfa Romeo driver.
A2 will have a DRS from Simmons, though, Jacob. This might be a little bit more difficult than Calcifer had initially expected as they make their way now down into T1.
None of them are going to have DRS because it's only just been enabled, and side by side they go here on the outside. It's A2 UK who once again shows the style here. Turn 2 side by side. This almost never goes well, but it's gone okay for both of those guys this time around. Calcifer really struggling to get past A2 UK, but might just have done it. Can the Alfa Romeo send a dive bomb down into turn 3, or will he think better of it? Indeed he does. Again, at the moment, it really seems like it's Dougie Falcons who is in the best spot for a win at the moment, as Calcifer and Chegwin are going side by side. It is Calcifer all over the back of Chegwin, but Value all over the back of Rainbow for third position. This time around, it looks like he has got the move done in the AlphaTauri. Here comes Wheeze Racing then on Simons. Can he go around the outside of turn 3? Yes, he can, but not without almost making a contact with the wall once again. It was very close racing between those two. No damage picked up, and I think that was all of it just about fair. McLaren driver, Simons has no front wing on his car either. Sipos, what's happened to Sipos in the castle section? He's binned it. And now Dougie Falcon and Value, they're going to make contact with the rear of him as well. They need to try and get their way past. They need to be oh so careful here to get past Patrick Sipos, who's binned it from the race lead. Value gets a 5-second time penalty for a collision with Rainbow there. They're all just going to have to squeeze their way through as a full safety car comes out. Calcifer gets a 5-second time penalty. Iceman gets a 5-second time penalty. Ooh, that's Dougie already thinking about getting alongside Calcifer. They're both trying to get themselves a big run on Luppy and Wheeze, who have now pulled the trigger. And it looks like a poor run for Calcifer, who might well be going backwards instead of forwards. Wheeze thinks about the move into turn 1. He won't go for it. Dougie Falcons backs out as well. So Calcifer, the lucky boy, does hold on to third for now. And this is when he can make his tire advantage work. Value's already making moves. He's past Chegg Fried Rice. He tried to pass A2 UK as well, but that time he bit off more than he could chew. Elon Tusk has had an issue through turn 2, and he's fallen to the back of the order. But here comes Calcifer on the hard-tired Renault up ahead. Wheeze is able to battle back and hold on to the position for now. The switchback, the up and under now from Calcifer around the outside of 4. They'll bang wheels, but it will be Calcifer getting through. Contact between those two once again, but neither of them are going to be too unhappy with that, I don't think, as now Wheeze is battling with yet another Ferrari. This time it's Dougie Falcons, and on those hard tires, he cannot make it work. Luppy still out there in the lead for now, though, as Calcifer's in second. Dougie getting past Wheeze that quickly is critical to his attempt to try and stick with Calcifer to the end of this race. Value and Iceman making some progress, but not as much as they would like, as Chegwin has fallen down into 8th, with Ruben just behind him. But all kinds of battling here on the safety car restart, and as you said, it's a sprint to the finish. careful up in towards turn 1 here. A2 already trying to get past Weaves. Here comes Valu as well. Can he take A2? He tried to do it a couple of laps ago. Will he be as ambitious this time? No, but he will take the Renault around the outside. He's done that once this race. He's done it again, and this time to Weaves. Calcifer's made it up into first as well, as Iceman also dispatches the Renault of Weaves Racing over the back of them right now, as Calcifer unsurprisingly sets the fastest lap of the race on those softs in clean air. Dougie does make it past Luppy, but it's closer than he would have liked, as Valu also up the inside of A2 UK, who struggles on the exit, and now Iceman with the better grip on those soft tires wants to make a fight of it here. He will not be able to do so through turn 2 though. A2 UK still in 5th, but only for now.
And Ruben still dropping down the order as well. Lucas dropping down the order as well. And that's an incident into turn 2 VSC. And I think he's collected Ruben's front wing as well. Iceman's got a 5-second time penalty for collision with A2 UK. I hope Iceman still has his front wing in check, because that 5-second time penalty can get removed at the end of the race.
I think he doesn't. He's missing his left end plate, unless I'm very much mistaken yet. The left end plate is missing these drivers, and he's going to look to try and get past both of them right now. Luppy might will dive into the pits with that drive-through penalty, and he does. Here comes Valu onto the back of the Ferrari. Does he send it up the inside? No, he does not.
More racing point, all things considered.
For sure, yeah. Now Simons sends it up the inside into turn 1. Oh, and that was never going to work in the end. He's hit the wall on the outside of turn 1, all locked up there, as here goes Chegwin and Iceman, these two veterans of Premier X battling side by side for P5. Chegwin looking to take the position away from Iceman, who's ailing in that Haas with the front wing damage that he has on those soft tires, which are starting to age just a little bit now as well. But he tries to fight back. Chegwin taking a very unorthodox route there through turn 6. He's probably going to have to cede that position to Iceman in the end, but a nice little battle between the two. No, Chegwin actually staying ahead for now. So I'd expect Calcifer flying the flag for the Grove outfit here as he comes up towards the line with 4.3 seconds in his pocket and wins the Azerbaijan Premier X Grand Prix.
Yeah, fantastic drive from Calcifer. Dougie will take P2 ahead of A2 and Valu, who drops down from the penalties. But Maverick, he might jump ahead of a Czech Fried Rice here from time penalties. He'll take P5, but don't forget Iceman's time penalties will be removed, so we think that's a P6 for Maverick, as Reese takes P7, AJ P8.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Formula X Racing Premier X as we make our way for round 3 of the championship at Paul Ricard Le Castellet in France. As always, I'm Yousuf Milky Cereal, joined by Jacob Hancox. And Jacob, Azerbaijan saw a lot of craziness, as is to be expected with a street circuit, but now we make our way to France, which is the complete opposite. The walls so far away from a corner, so much space. You know, forget 2 wide, you could go 3 wide, 4 wide around some of the corners here. I'm kind of curious as to how much the racing is going to differ from round 2 to round 3.
Well, yeah, I think first things first, if we do see people going side by side, they're more likely to go side by side for more corners at a time than we see in Baku. Usually, it's only 1 or 2 corners that you can manage to extend a battle for in Baku before we get to a corner where it's just completely impossible to go side by side. So theoretically, we could have longer, more interesting battles at Paul Ricard. However, we may also see fewer battles. It's not as bad as in real life. In real life, it's very hard to overtake at Paul Ricard. In the game, not so bad, actually. There's plenty of opportunity, but less so than in Baku, I would say.
Yeah, and one of the biggest differences going from Baku to France is a lot less high-speed braking, a lot less chance to recharge that ERS battery, which does make defending a lot more difficult. DRS trains are something very common to see. But before we start talking more about France, let's remind ourselves as to how the championship looks after a thrilling round 2 at Baku. Because after taking his first win of the season, Calcifer climbs up the championship and he finds himself in 2nd in the championship. I just realized we have the standings from last week. However, I do have the standings in front of me. So Valu leads the championship. He's on 77 points ahead of Calcifer and Dougie Falcons at 13. There we go. 13 points separating the top 3. And then we've got a bit of a jump down to A2 UK because he's in P4 after... Well, he managed to take that P3 spot in Baku after a fantastic drive from him. Vexit's in 5th place after his race went horridly wrong in Baku right from the get-go. Maverick in P6 ahead of Iceman as Rainbow, Luppy, and Weiss complete the top 10.
Yeah, Maverick's going to be chuffed to be up there in P6, especially after how it looked like last race was going to go with him pitting on lap 1. But he really brought it back there to get a 5th place finish, and 6th in the standings is definitely above where he would have been expecting to be, and definitely above where we expected him to be as well. Same story for A2 UK, but of course managing the podium, just going that one step better. The Alfa Romeos in general have looked pretty solid, but it's interesting that it's been A2 UK and not AJ who's been taking home the points for them thus far.
Very interesting, because if we remember back to our power rankings, we put AJ in that top 10, A2 UK in the bottom 10, but A2 performing really well, bringing home those points. And AJ, he was involved in a few incidents last time out in Baku. A2 took P9 in round 1, and AJ was only able to get P16. So AJ, he needs to, pick up the pace, keep his nose a little bit cleaner, because at the moment, A2 is doing a fantastic job carrying Alfa Romeo forward. The question, though, is, can that form continue?
Yeah, well, they will definitely be hoping for it. 4th in the constructors' standings at the moment. A bit of a gap up to Williams, just like there's a bit of a gap from A2 UK up to Dougie Falcons. But all to play for still at this very early stage of the season. And we have got a closer constructors' standings than we had sort of at this point last season. And, many we would usually expect to have, shall we say. But there are a few lagging behind towards the very bottom. Red Bull won't be too happy with only 22 points scored thus far. Of course, double DNF for them last time out in Baku certainly didn't help that tally. Because remember, you score points no matter where you finish, as long as you finish. The only way to not score points is to not finish. And neither Kenners nor Patrick finished. You can see both of them at the very bottom of the standings. Patrick was, of course, standing in for Red Bull last time as Ulas wasn't available.
Yeah, and both McLaren and Red Bull at the bottom end of the standings. We thought they'd be so high up. I think we had both of those teams in our top 3. Definitely McLaren was in my top 3. I can't quite remember on Red Bull, because we thought, Ulas would be so strong, Paris would be so strong. Both of them had horrid opening races at China, with Paris having the minus 200 degrees tire glitch. And, well, Ulas, we all saw what happened heading down in towards turn 5. And then Paris wasn't able to race last week. He couldn't pick up any points, and the same went for Ulas. So they really need to pick things up, because, they're already 100 points down pretty much on AlphaTauri.
Yeah, but 100 points is less in this league than it would be in most leagues. So it's definitely not an insurmountable effort, especially if we're going to see Ulas regularly attending from here on out. I believe we're going to be seeing Ulas racing today. And we do expect Ulas to be taking multiple wins throughout the course of this season if things go as expected. As long as he can get it together in qualifying, he should be right up there at the very top, scoring the big points. And that should help to bring down the gap to AlphaTauri. But AlphaTauri being at the top with Valu doing so well at the moment, really, he does look like the man to beat at the moment.
However, Formula X Racing has 3 divisions. Of course, we're showing up Premier X tonight. But on Wednesday night, it was Division 2. And on Thursday night, it was Division 1 running here at Paul Ricard in France for their 3rd round of the championship. So let's take a quick look, first of all, with Division 2 as to how the championship lines up. Because it was Neo Element who picked up the win ahead of Battle Mine and Fister. And I think that was a 2nd win in a row coming through from the Alfa Romeo driver. And in Division 1, it was Walter who took his 1st win of the season, ahead of yours truly, and Venom, who you might remember as the author of Winners and Losers of the Week on the Formula X Racing website. He took a P3, and I think Venom was definitely a winner of this week. So I'm sure he's going to be writing a cheeky little article about himself in the upcoming few days. However, let's take a final look back at the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, because Jacob, as always, went and had a look at some of the biggest incidents from the race.
To the 2nd FXR incident report video of the season, taking a look at some of the incidents we saw in last week's Premier X race. This time we were in Azerbaijan, and as ever in Azerbaijan, there are a fair few incidents to look at, so why don't we just get right into them now. Alright, so here we are then on the opening lap of the race, on board with Wheeze racing in the Renault. And when we roll the clip, we can look at Simmons on the right-hand side. Keep your eye on him as we get into the braking zone for 3. Simmons just cutting across in the braking zone and taking off some of the front wing there of Wheeze's car. Unfortunately, that is not where the fighting between Wheeze and Simmons finished, as we'll see now on lap 3. Only a couple of laps later, we're going down towards turn 7. Simmons on the inside, Wheeze on the outside. And Wheeze tries to keep it on the outside and ends up in the barrier on the left-hand side, and it makes a tiny bit of contact with the Ferrari as well. No damage picked up, but why don't we look at the incident again here, and you can see this is the moment that Wheeze makes contact with the wall, and there's actually quite a bit of space on his right-hand side, so maybe there was a little more the Renault driver could have done to avoid hitting the wall. We had those two videos together because they both involved Wheeze and Simmons, and they both happened near the start of the race, but they were really very different incidents. So let's take a look at them separately. The first one was definitely Simmons' fault in the end. He just cut across in the braking zone. Wheeze had no chance to react to that whatsoever, and even if he did, he shouldn't have been forced to. Once you get into the braking zone, you can't make another move like that. It's always going to end in tears, and as it did, it cost Wheeze quite a lot of pace as well with that front wing damage. It was a significant amount of his front wing that was taken off, so yeah, Simmons definitely to blame for that one. However, once we go on to the next incident between the two of them, I'm less sure about who I'm going to cast the blame on here. I mean, obviously, Wheeze doesn't really have anything to blame because it just ends up with him in the wall. Nothing bad happens to Simmons in the clip. But I don't think Simmons does anything wrong either, really. He leaves enough space on the left-hand side. It's tight, it's a very tight section of track, but he does leave enough space on the outside. He has the inside line for the corner, and that means that all he really has to do is make sure he leaves at least a car's width on the outside of the corner between himself and the wall, and he does that in the end. Wheeze just understeers wide a little bit into the wall, maybe giving the Ferrari driver a bit too much space for his own part, and it's almost a bit of a misunderstanding in a way, but in the end, I don't think Simmons actually does anything wrong in that particular incident. On to the next incident then, and this one is a very big one indeed. Once again, I'm afraid it does involve Simmons in a starring role. There's sort of two incidents here to look at. So here we see the first of those two, a bit of a three-way contact into turn 1. Minor contact, but it does send a little bit of front wing flying. And then here into turn 2 is when things get really messy. You can see Simmons at the inside, 3 cars into the wall, and a whole host of other cars involved as well. So let's look at the first incident again here real quick. You can just see the 2 cars turning in on Luca in the middle, who's just the sort of Haas in a sandwich there. Nowhere really he is able to go in that one. And then into turn 2, and it's Simmons diving up the inside in the Ferrari there, and he just doesn't leave enough space on his outside for 2 cars, sending them both into the wall, and a lot of people lose out there. Again, we've got 2 separate incidents to discuss here. The first one between, I believe that's Max on the inside in the Renault in that one, Luca in the middle in the Haas, and then Ruben on the outside in the Mercedes, is an interesting one. Max is a little bit ahead of the other 2, and Ruben's also a little bit ahead of Luca as well, who is definitely the furthest back of the 3 cars, so theoretically, if anyone's going to back out of it, it's probably him. However, I think he's alongside enough that he can justify some space in that corner. I don't think either of the drivers should be surprised that he keeps his nose in there. For my money, I think that incident, if you had to point the blame anywhere, would be on Ruben turning in just a little bit too early in the Mercedes. Maybe he could take a more sweeping line around the outside to facilitate the fact that there's 2 cars on his inside, but at the end of the day, it really is just a racing incident. I don't think anyone can be blamed for that. It's just what happens when people try and go 3 wide through turn 1, and it's just unlucky to whoever picked up the damage in that one. But then the next incident is a bit more clear-cut. 3 cars going side by side through turn 2, even more of a difficult prospect than turn 1. And Simmons is the one on the inside. He's dictating where the other 2 go, and he dictates that they go straight into the wall pretty much. He just leaves nowhere near enough space on the right-hand side of his car. It's possible that he was trying to steer left and couldn't because of the sort of the way the physics can sometimes glue the side pods of cars together in F1 2020, but I think even then you can just brake and get out of it, and he would have had to slow down quite a lot to get out of it, but he definitely should have chosen that option rather than sending 2 other cars into the wall. And then also commiserations to the likes of Elon Tusk, who weren't even involved in either of the incidents until the very end of the second one, where he just hit Luca, who was facing backwards in the middle of the road. For this final clip then, we're on board with Lord Chegwin on the final lap of the race, going side by side with Iceman here, as Iceman was struggling with slightly older soft tyres and a broken front wing as well. And that's what allowed Chegwin to pull up alongside him and then trying to take the position on the last lap. Looks like he's got it done here. But down into turn 6, we see a big dive bomb from Iceman up the inside. They make contact and Chegwin is forced to scamper across the curbs to make the corner at all. And he keeps the position ahead of Iceman. So yeah, pretty cut and dry this one, right? Iceman dive bombs up the inside, forces Chegwin to scamper across the curbs in turn 6. Chegwin holds on to the position there, but having cut the corner, but he's sort of allowed to cut the corner because Iceman is the one who put him in that position in the first place with his own dive bomb attempt at a defense of his position. And I think that was sort of on the limit from Iceman, but I don't think it was really over the line either. They did make contact, and I think it did force Chegwin off track. So if Iceman had taken the position, then I think maybe we could have seen some sort of penalty there. But I think as things stand, no action either way is probably the right way to go here. And part of the reason I wanted to bring this one up here actually is because I got this wrong on commentary, so I'm going to own up to this right now. I said that I was worried that Chegwin was going to pick up a time penalty for this one because I only really caught him cutting across the corner. I didn't really realise exactly why he'd done it, but on second look, Chegwin did absolutely nothing wrong here. So that's going to be it from me, so thank you guys very, very much for watching, and I will see you next time.
Quite a few incidents, a lot more than what we saw at China. And we'll have to see whether those incidents do keep on coming through thick and fast here at Le Castellet. One driver I do want to bring up is Weiss, because we've seen him have incidents in China. We've seen him have incidents in Baku as well. And to be fair to him, he battles tooth and nail for every position. And I, as a commentator, I, as a spectator, love to see it because it gives us more to talk about. It makes things more exciting. But we're getting to the point where does he at this point say, okay, I've tried to battle, thick and hard for every position. Do I start to let some positions go just so I can get, finish higher up the order so I run less risk of having an incident and losing points, not just for himself, but for Renault in the Constructors' Championship?
I mean, I think no, because I don't think any of the incidents he's had have really been anything that he could do much about. Of course, you can just give up every single position, but you can't sort of think, well, you can't just start letting people bully you around like that, because if you're letting other drivers know that you're just going to wave them by as long as they get aggressive with you once, then they're just going to do it over and over again, and they're going to know that you're just going to melt out of the way and let them through. So why wouldn't they do it, right? That's what Ayrton Senna used to do to other drivers. He used to say, oh, we're going to crash unless you get out of the way. And then, they got out of the way most of the time. But if you do that, you give the mental edge to the opponent, and they're forever gonna, they're going to see it's you up ahead, and they're always going to go for the move. Even if it's like a 10% chance of coming off, they're going to think there's a chance I scare this guy off the road here. So as a long-term strategy, I don't think it's really viable just to give up on every single fight.
He has been involved in a lot of battles. And to be fair to Weiss, I don't think you can say that there has been one time there's been, a collision or something where someone else has come out worse and Weiss has come out ahead. So you'd have to think that at some point those tides are going to change and he's going to start coming out on top in those 50-50 scenarios. However, as we get closer and closer to the mark for the start of qualifying here at Le Castellet, I got a chance to catch up with everyone's favorite South African driver.
I am joined by our very own resident South African, Ruben himself. Ruben, thank you so much for taking the time to join me in this week's interview. And I hear that you've got a bit of an announcement for myself and all of our viewers.
Yeah, well, I am retiring from racing in FXR and just about every league race out there that's in the midweek. I'm no longer going to be racing in FXR and only take up an admin role because of work commitments, sadly.
And obviously for myself, because I think one of the first races I ever commentated was that Monaco race where you hopped in. So, that all the way from back at that race in Monaco where you finished P3, you looked so quick. You're still missing that elusive win. Do I dare hope? Can we hope for a Ruben masterclass tonight at Paul Ricard?
I mean, if I avoid getting lapped before a late safety car, that's like 2 laps from the end, and everyone else has like 10 seconds in penalties, yes, I will win.
Okay. So, late safety car, lots of penalties. I mean, penalties at France is not unheard of, so it's possible. I mean, you did say at the start of the season, you deserve to be at the top of the power rankings. And so far, you've got two P14 results. So, in seriousness, though, what would kind of be your ideal result to wrap up your FXR career, let's say?
At top 5. I was actually at the point of nearly getting a top 5 last week, and then Baku happened, like walls, people pushing you into walls. So that's my wing broke multiple times in the space of a single lap. Baku happened. So last week's result isn't representative of what should have happened. But yeah, today I think getting a top 6 would be a good result. Best of the rest.
I mean, it would be best of the rest. I mean, you'd be pretty much in that group of, top drivers when, we'd be putting out, the names of Valu, Paris, and Kalsver. If you were in the top 6, you'd be right up there with them. In Season 1, the battles was, yourself, Iceman, Maverick, we saw Sipos Bents as well. Where do you kind of see yourself now? Because Iceman's been getting some of those top 10 results. You've been a bit outside of the top 10. Do you think, he's just improved a bit more than you, or do you think it's just been some bad races on your part?
Well, China was a fluke because that was just the setup problems, because I thought it was going to be a wet race and it never done more than 5 dry laps around China. And I even a week later, not even a week, a few days later, I did a China dry race, and I knew it was going to be dry beforehand, and my qualifying time was good enough to get me into Q3 in FXR. So I think that was a fluke. And then Baku crashed in the castle section. I think that was also a fluke. And those two are my worst tracks, I would say. So if it was Brazil, we all know I'm the best around Brazil. And I'm also not too slow around France sometimes. We're starting to get into the tracks now that I actually like. The sad thing is I can't race them anymore. So yeah, it's quite a sad thing to miss out on the nice tracks and only race in the bad ones.
How did I just hear you call China bad track?
100% bad track.
Wow, I'm disappointed. Baku I can understand, but China, no, that holds a special place in my heart. So, I mean, we talked a little bit about your last season. You, sadly, because you did join midway through, you only managed to get P7. You missed out on that FXR Showdown race. What has been your favourite moment in FXR so far for yourself as a driver? Whether that's an overtake, a battle you had, just jokes that you've had with drivers, whatever it may be.
Crashing into the pit wall in Abu Dhabi. That was a beautiful moment. I think the whole easy meet saga with Iceman, that was fun. And then I beat him on. I think the easy meet saga happened a week before Brazil, and I ended up beating him in Brazil the next week. He was talking it up so much and saying he's gonna show me who's the easy meet in Brazil. And I ended up beating him because his car turned into a Apache helicopter dog. But yeah, that was fun. I really loved Monaco because it was a night race at Monaco, my first race. And I just remember catching Iceman and Patrick by like 6 seconds in the last few laps. And that was very thrilling. I loved it. Yeah, it was actually, every race had something that I can think back on fondly, It was fun.
Well, hopefully things continue that way in France, so you don't have to think back to the last race that was Baku, because Baku. Now, of course, Ruben, while we won't be seeing you anymore in the FXR F1 League, I hear there's a certain other league that's popping up that we'll be seeing your beautiful face in.
the ACC league in FXR.
Exactly.
That's on weekends. I can do that. Yeah, I can still race in the ACC, and if FXR expands to do races on the weekends, which probably will happen anytime within the next 6 months.
It's like you giving just a hint to Sam. Sam, weekend races.
Yeah.
Um,
I am influencing him. Yeah, we need weekend races. Or riot. We will riot in the streets.
Right in the streets, we will slaughter them where they stand. But no, for our viewers, if any of them are interested in Assetto Corsa Competizione, Ruben and Maverick are, I don't know, they're brewing something up. I don't know what exactly is being brewed, but it is an evil concoction, and it features GT racing cars. So if that's your kind of thing, make sure to get involved. Just spam them in the general chat on Discord. Just at them like 500 times. They'll absolutely love it. Ruben,
It's fun.
thank you so much for your time. Now, because this is, I mean, your last race in Formula 1 with us, and it is, as a result, our last interview, you get to meme, you get to BM one person, and they don't get a chance to come back at you, Ruben. So, I'll give you some time to think, but you need to think of one driver that you can really roast as hard as you want. Hard flame, make a grilled chicken out of them.
Some insults, the roast insults, they tend to be over complex, and that takes away from it.
Yeah.
So I think keeping a roast simple but deadly is the way to go. So, that said and done, do you want me to say it now?
I want it now. In this interview that will be broadcasted live to all of our viewers in the pre-show later tonight.
Okay. Keep on with the spirits of previous comments, all in good spirits.
Ruben's thinking, he's thinking. I agreed with what you said, keep it simple, a nice simple roast is sometimes better than when when you add too many spices, you do too many things, it just goes all wrong. So, nice and simple, I like it. I'm pretty sure I know the driver Ruben wants to roast. I'm pretty sure of that.
I think it's going to be Iceman, because I love the guy. But I think I need to roast him one last time, just because that's the way it's been going. Iceman, if people became trophies on the way their lives went on Earth, you would be a participation trophy.
Oh, that's brilliant. Ruben, thank you so much. It has been a pleasure to interview you once again, and best of luck in your final race at Paul Ricard.
Thank you, enjoy.
A participation trophy, Jacob? That's a bit harsh from Ruben, but I just want to say one thing. If you're going to, when you roast someone, I think you should make it accurate. And there's a big old trophy in Iceman's house that would disagree with a participation award. And to be fair to Ruben, if he was going to get a trophy, well, it wouldn't even be a participation trophy as he's leaving us. So, Ruben, you got to do better with your roast, buddy.
Oh, no. Oh, that's... You asked him to do it, and then you turn it around on him like this. For shame, for shame.
No one's going to do any interviews with me after this. I'm just saying, guys, make sure you get your roasts ready. I will be requesting far more roasts to come through in the ensuing weeks. But, Jacob, France is upon us. We are at the hour. Qualifying will be starting shortly. So let's take a quick look then at the track that is in front of us on our screens now. What are the key points here at Paul Ricard?
The key points. So one place you can gain or lose a lot of time is in turns 5 and 6. Getting turn 6 right is very, very important because you can see the long back straight, the first half of the Mistral straight before turn 8, that is all dependent on your exit through turn 6. And it's really hard. There's no obvious marker to let you know when you can lay the throttle down. And it's all about feeling the rear grip on the tires and making sure that you just nail it at the right time without spinning the car out, which is possible to do there. So that's a very important section of track for sure. 8 and 9 as well, the chicane in the middle of the Mistral straight. It's quite a fast chicane, and it needs maximum commitment. You can ride the curbs pretty heavily through there without picking up a penalty. And you do need to do that, and you need to make sure that you can take more speed through there than you think. You feel like you need to brake harder than you do. So it does reward you for being really brave and having maximum commitment through there. So that's always good. I like that sort of corner. And then the last corner, turn 15, is not one people talk about very much, but it's a really weird and really difficult corner. It's a sort of curved braking zone going into it. You don't have much time to think about it. It's a very hard braking zone because it's such a tight corner that you have to get your way around. And of course, once again, the exit is very important. And the curbing on the outside of the track on the exit is just unbelievably difficult to get the power down on. So it's a really, really tough one to get the exit on, but you need to get a good one.
Yeah. Now, qualifying weather conditions will be light rain to overcast. And in the race, it's going to be going from overcast to heavy rain to light rain. So there's going to be a lot of spikes, a lot of pit stops that are coming up as well. But Jacob was talking a little bit about the curbs, maybe to go on, maybe to stay off. Now, Calcifer took us for a hot lap at Paul Ricard, and, well, you can visualize which curbs you should and shouldn't take.
With a driver of the day, Calcifer, as he takes us for a hot lap here at the circuit, Paul Ricard. Make sure to get a really good run through the final corner. Pull the car all the way over to the right as you start your hot lap. Turn 1, you can brake super late, about in between. We're riding on board with a driver of the day, Calcifer, as he takes us for a hot lap here at the circuit, Paul Ricard. Make sure to get a really good run through the final corner. Pull the car all the way over to the right as you start your hot lap. Turn 1, you can brake super late, about in between the two curbings on the right. Use up all of the curb all the way through the first couple of corners and maximize your exit speed. Really easy to lose your back end. Down into turn 3, using up all the curb. 4th gear for the left-hander. Make sure to keep a nice high gearing through the section of the track to minimize your wheel spin on a corner exit. Nice wide line on the exit of a turn 6 to get yourself a really good run through turn 7. And just to keep that speed as high as possible as you now get ready to brake down into turn 8. You can brake so late, about 70-80 meters, using up all of the curb through 8 and use a little bit through 9, and of course all of the exit as you make your way onto the second part of the back straight. Turn 10 coming up, and turn 10 is completely flat. Just a little bit of turning on that steering wheel. Keep it as smooth as possible. And now turn 11. You can lose so much time. Calcifer carries as much speed as he dares. Nice wide line through 11 to get himself a nice slingshot on the exit. Now turn 12. Off camber and very slippery. Stay off the curb on the apex, but you can use the curb on exit. Make sure not to invalidate. Through 13, completely flat. Now down into 14. Keep a nice tight line all the way through. Pull it over to the left as you get ready to slingshot your way through turn 15. Nice high gears once again to prevent wheel spin. And that is a lap here at Paul Ricard, France.
Well, Calcifer will be hoping to nail a qualifying lap like that come Q3. But Jacob, we are into qualifying, and it is raining here in France.
It is raining here in France. It's raining rather a lot, actually. If this is light rain, then I don't know what to expect when we're going to see the heavy rain later on today, or at least it's forecast. But yes, quite a wet track facing the drivers here at the very start of Q1, and it is forecast to dry up towards the end of qualifying, but I don't know at which point during qualifying we'll see that transition phase be, so we might well see a fully intermediate Q1 here.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be very interesting as well, with the track conditions drying up all throughout qualifying. It's going to be a case of whoever gets out last will be at such a significant advantage as the track dries up and there's just that little bit more grip. And I do wonder when we will start to see drivers opting for those slick tires, because it could be right at the end of Q1 or Q2, and we might see some of the drivers on the lower end of the field look to take that gamble, and it might be some of the drivers at the higher end of the field that get caught out and get knocked out early.
Yeah, for sure. That's definitely something we would expect to see. And yeah, so no one's actually managed to set a lap time quite yet. You can see we've got 19 drivers in the lobby here today. I don't know if the 20th is planning on joining us or not, as we had Kenner's arriving a little bit late last time around, but he is here this time. And only the one Ferrari, and it's the unfamiliar name of Marancello in that one.
Yeah, so we get to see a new driver out in force. Marancello jumping in for, well, it could be either of the Ferrari drivers because Dougie Falcons isn't here. And of course, Simmons is serving a race ban after, well, the incidents that we saw at Baku. So Simmons takes a break from us this week, but he will be back in Silverstone, or at least we hope so, as the first flying laps will start to be coming through here at France. And I've just been trying to keep an eye if anyone's taking any different lines compared to the dry lines. But at the moment, everything looks pretty much identical to the lines we saw Calcifer showing us on that hot lap guide.
Yeah, in general, there's less of a sort of wet line that you get. You sometimes, in real life, in particular real life racing, you get the karting line, the wet line, you sometimes hear it called. It applies a bit less in general in F1 2020, the game. Most of the time, it is just the dry line, or the line which is the best in the dry tends to remain so the best in the wet. And maybe we'll just see some of the drivers giving the curbs a bit more of a wide berth here than they do usually, as Max now opens up the order with a 1:41.255, but Calcifer immediately goes 1.2 seconds quicker with a 1:40 flat. A2 UK coming in to split the difference halfway.
Yeah, and we asked the question, will A2 be able to continue his form? And at the moment, maybe yes, maybe no, he's right in the middle as Iceman sets a 40.2. So we're starting to see some good representative laps coming in, and, well, I'd probably assume that we're looking at probably a high 40, maybe a mid 40 as a kind of cut-off point to make it into Q2. Of course, that can all completely change if the track dries up.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure on the minimap there I just caught a glimpse of, I think it was Ruben losing it on the exit of Senior, turn 10, just where we're seeing the McLaren of Paris Burrell going through now. And I think Ruben lost it around there, got back on track, and maybe held up, I think it was Weeze's Renault, maybe just a little bit, I'm not sure. I think he probably got out of the way into turn 11, though. We did see Paris invalidating there, but there should be enough time for the drivers to set a decent lap, because you then do tend to put a bit more fuel into the car when it's a intermediate or wet qualifying session, because that way you can just go round and round and round, get more and more used to the drying track, and sort of learn the sort of speed that you can take in all kinds of different corners. So as a result of that, the drivers will have more opportunities to set more lap times. So they're going to be hurt less by individual invalidations. I doubt we're going to be seeing anyone failing to set a time.
Yeah, and it's one of the reasons why wet weather qualifying is sometimes so much better than dry weather qualifying, because, you know, drivers can just put on a set of inters, do half the session, come in the pit, put on another set of inters and do one or two final laps. And you can just put in so many lap times as AJ runs really wide through turn 11 to get a good slingshot on exit. He just loses the back end, still hasn't invalidated though. And there are a few places here at Le Castellet where you can, you know, abuse the track limits a bit and get away with it, as AJ showed.
Yeah, I think in turn 11 as well, he actually got off the throttle a bit more than he would usually on the exit there, just to ensure he didn't invalidate that one, as he was comfortably all four wheels off the track. Round the final corner we go, as Balu goes to the top of the order ahead of Calcifer, who himself has improved on his previous best. AJ goes third with a 1:42.79. So I think we might be seeing the track improving just a little bit here. Iceman and Ulas have also come into the order on low 140s, besting A2 UK, who has now been shuffled down to 6. I think someone else just came through and set a lap time. I believe that was Marancello in 10th place, standing in the Ferrari.
Yeah, and now Paris is on his second lap. Remember, he invalidated through a turn 10 on his previous lap. He's going to be a driver who'll be hoping to get into the 39s alongside the likes of Valu Calcifer. Remember, qualifying back in China was in the wet. Actually, was it in the wet? I can't remember now. But either way, Paris Burrell will come across the line. And it's a 39.80 number P3 at the moment.
Yeah, decent lap time there from Paris Burrell. Luca comes across the line in 4th as well, ahead of his teammate by just a 10th of a second. I think those guys, provided the track doesn't dry up drastically in the last 9.5 minutes of this session, they should be okay with those lap times. They shouldn't really feel the need to go back out again, because we are seeing a fair few drivers down there in the 140s. And most of the drivers who haven't set a lap time yet, we're not expecting to necessarily challenge the very top of the order. They'll be struggling to get out of Q1 rather than trying to get into Q3. So Valu, Calcifer, Paris, they're probably all safe at the moment, unless there's a drastic change in track conditions.
Yeah, and we will have to see whether that weather change does come through at some point. Valu's into the pits. Calcifer is still out. Don't get fooled by the bottom of the screen, which says fast lap is a 40 dead as Luca gets very sideways. But that lap from Calcifer was the fastest of the session until Valu improved, and then Calcifer improved himself. But Luca's one driver I do want to, kind of talk about a little bit, because he showed pace back at Baku. He was able to qualify P2, started on the medium tires. He was looking like he was in such a good position, and then it all just went horribly, horribly wrong for him.
Yeah, Luca has not had the rub of the green thus far. He's been involved with quite a few incidents as well. And, whether those are his fault, whether they're not, it kind of depends from incident to incident. We saw him getting caught out in that one colossal incident in Baku that was caused by Simons shoving 2 cars into the wall by not leaving enough space on the outside of turn 2. And Luca definitely came off worst in that one. So, yeah, he's not had it all his own way thus far this season, not making it through. I can't remember if it was Q1 or Q2 he got knocked out of, but he didn't make it into Q3, qualified down towards sort of 15th or thereabouts in China. So he needs a clean run here to really cement himself in the championship and to get Haas rolling in the championship as well. The team I thought might be my tip for Constructors Champions, currently sitting down in 7th on only 43 points.
Yeah, both Haas drivers very unlucky last time out at Baku. Of course, Iceman, he was on the same strategy of Calcifer, or he was on the same strategy as Calcifer, and that was when the second safety car came in. He looked all set, really, to get P2, P3, and then front wing damage came in, and he had that battle with Chegwin on the final lap of the race, which he came out of worse. So, the Haas drivers, they've been, one of the teams that have been very unlucky in those opening couple of races, like McLaren, like Red Bull. So it will be great to see them coming up on strong form. Now, Vexet is a quick driver. We saw him perform well both at China and at Baku in qualifying. Sadly for him, the races didn't go fantastically well, albeit in China he did get a P2, but currently he's all the way down in P11, and he's definitely going to want to improve on that lap.
Yeah, for sure. Ruben comes across the line and set his 4th flying lap of the session and manages to get up into 12th. So he's just going round and round and round on those intermediate tires. As I mentioned, you can just tank up the cars a little bit with some extra fuel and start to really get your iron in the damp and slowly drying conditions. And you want to make sure that you're out there at the best time as well. If the track is going to dry up, you want to be out there at the very end, as it looked like Luca invalidated that previous attempt. He's currently sitting in P4 still. So at the moment, he's just out there basically doing a practice run for Q2, assuming it's still going to be damp conditions there. A lot of the other drivers, though, towards the top of the order have just decided to come into the pit. So they've decided they don't need the practice. They're all done where they are. AJ is going back out. I think that was that Max just going up into P8 there in the Renault. That's a good lap time from the German. That is a little bit better than what we've been seeing from him in qualifying thus far this season. And Vexit and Rainbow, I'm also surprised to see them only down in the mid-140s at the moment. They'd be expecting to be up there with the big dogs, but right now, not the case.
Yeah, and right as you say that, Luppy goes at P3, Elon Tusk goes up to P13, but as you mentioned, Rainbow, Vexit, they're definitely going to want to improve. As what I think Weiss and Maverick, 2 drivers that have been, right in those mid-table scraps, as Kenneth runs very wide to get out of the way of the Mercedes. I think that's a Rainbow. And yeah, fantastic drive, fantastic lap from Max. Also AJ, we talked a little bit about him. Great to see him showing pace in the Alfa Romeo in the early stages of qualifying.
Yeah, definitely. That was also his sort of first effort that put him up there. I think he improved on it maybe once to go down to that 140.2 mark. Kenners is the only driver yet to set a lap time. Everyone else has managed a lap time, and a pretty representative one at that. Maranello, a little bit off the back of the field, but given that it's his first race here in Premier X as a reserve driver in the Ferrari outfit, I think that can definitely be forgiven. Then you got Maverick and Chegg Fried Rice, two of the stars of last race, really, compared to expectations at least. But right now, as soon as I say that, Chegg Fried Rice goes up into 12th. Chegwin, of course, is the more usual name. Chegwin, Cheggers, whatever you want to call them, up into 12th now, making Max's lap time look a little bit less special. And I think what this is telling us is the track is improving a fair amount. Luffy going up into P3 as well gives that sort of impression. And as a result, Paris has felt the need to come back out. Valu has as well. Councillor still keeping his cool in the pits. But I think a few of these drivers who are waiting in the pits to see whether people are going to improve, they're probably going to want to get out there sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and I think the kind of ideal point to go out as Ulas jumps up to the top of the standings. That's what we expected from the Turkish driver, and it's great to see him showing his form the third round of the championship. Better late than never, and something that would be better late than never is getting out of the pits, because this is the point that I'm expecting everyone to start coming out of the pits. It's kind of the ideal time to make your way out of the pit if you want to do 2 laps on your intermediate tires. Calcifer leaves the session, so he's clearly happy enough with his lap, but drivers will be coming out of the pits now. If they only want to do 1 lap, expect them to be coming out with 2.5 minutes left.
Oh, Kenner's having to go back into the pits. He's out of fuel, I think, in the Red Bull, so he's going to need to get that one back out sharpish here, because he's still sitting in 19th place without a lap time. He'd be struggling to make it out of Q1 under usual conditions, but not setting a lap time is definitely not going to help his chances. Right now, at the bottom of the order, we got Weeze Racing, Maverick, Marinkello, and Kenners are the drivers at risk, with Ruben just squeaking through as things stand by less than 1/10 of a second over Weeze. Weeze will be disappointed to be in that conversation, so he'll want to come back out in the Renault sooner rather than later, as well as teammate up in 11th for now and still circulating in the all-German Renault outfit. Max also using the number of Nico Hulkenberg as well, so I think we can work out who one of his favourite drivers is, that's for sure. Maverick out here at the moment, and he's set 4 laps already on this set of intermediate tyres, so he'll want to improve quickly, but he's struggling to find that extra time, sitting down there on a 1:41.499. It's 3 more tenths up to the next driver, and that doesn't even get him safely into Q2.
And Jacob, I think he could be on fresh tyres. I don't know, because those tyres, the 4-lap old tyres, are the tyres he used to set that 41.4, so he might be on a fresh set of tyres and hasn't set a lap on these. Either way, he'll have a time to do 2 more laps, including the lap that he is about to start. Either way, let's see what Maverick can pull across the line. He wants to be getting into those low 40s.
Yeah, we'll just get him into it. It gets him into the low 41s, puts him ahead of Ruben and of Weeze, but Marinkello has managed to get himself up into 14th, so it's a moving goalpost. The Maverick is struggling to hit. He's just about squeaked one in there, but he might well find himself losing out as the session goes on and on, because those are now 5-lap-old intermediate tyres. These tyres do hang on pretty well, but at some point you will want the fresher tyres. They will be yielding a little bit more performance than what Mavericks are able to do as Ruben gets comfortably out of his way. Those two scrapping to try and escape, claw their way into Q2.
Yeah, Maverick still pushing. He runs wide on the exit of turn 7. He has time for 1 more lap. Time to knock it down into ERS mode 0 and go for 1 final push lap. We said that that cutoff would be about a 40.5 A2 UK. Still in the pits. That 40.5 is what he said on his very first lap of the session. And he's not heading back out, so that's pretty much it for A2 UK. He's going to be hoping that the likes of Marinkello, Maverick and Weeze don't improve, because those are the 3 names that, well, 2 names anyway, we'd expect to jump up the order. Of course, with Marinkello, we don't really know what his pace is like.
Yeah, we definitely don't know what to expect from the stand-in Ferrari driver. But A2 UK actually left the session after he came back into the pits to set that first lap, and I wonder if he's having trouble getting back in, or internet troubles, connectivity troubles, or something like that. Because as you mentioned, he should be out there on the track right now, and he is emphatically not. Seeing Luca coming across the line, setting an improved lap time, but it didn't actually improve his standing in the order at all.
Yeah, and Weeze cutting the corner just that little bit through turn 9.
Has he got time?
Well, you do have to remember that sometimes there is that glitch. The drivers have more time than it shows in the session, so he might just have enough time. Calcifer returns to the session, so he'll be able to get a full, a prime seat view of whether he makes it to Q2, and at the moment he's definitely making it through. Let's see if Weeze can make it to the line in time to start a new lap.
Yeah, I'm sure he will be able to, because he's not pushing through there at all, so he definitely has enough time in his pocket right now. I think Kenners is pushing behind, also maybe in the 3rd sector. One of the Red Bulls is in the 3rd sector at least, but let's take a look at what the Renault driver can do. Actually, no, we'll take a look at what Kenners can do instead. Coming down the Mistral straight, so he's about halfway through now once he gets to this braking zone up here. And this, if he can manage to keep a cobbler lap time together, will be his first actual properly recorded lap time of the session. Chegwin retires from the session in 12th. He's looking pretty comfortable for now, but he will be looking over his shoulder just a little bit nervously, as there are some drivers still out there to improve. A2 UK will not be one of them, though, so Craig has at least that in his pocket. Oh, big moment there through Senior for Kenners as he almost loses the car entirely. A dab of opposite lock through a very high-speed corner keeps the Red Bull pointing in the right direction. through turn 11 we go. That all looked okay, if a little bit pedestrian. Turn 12, one of the toughest corners on the circuit. Impossible not to pick up understeer through there as Kenners finds out to his cost. But it's all about how much time. How is this relative to the other laps we've seen? It's hard to tell right now. He doesn't have any deltas to his own time, of course. As he comes around the corner, Marancello improves up into 9th position. So the Ferrari driver will make it through into Q2. Will Kenners join him? Up towards the line he goes. Where's it going to be? It's only 19th for Kenners, and in the end, it's not even close to 141.897. Kenners will be very disappointed with how this qualifying session has gone. Ruben's in the pits as well, so he will not be able to escape either. Maverick's off track. He's not escaping either, so it's all up to Weeze. It's a battle, a straight fight between Weeze in the Renault and Elon in the McLaren.
Yeah, and Weeze, he was only a 10th up at the end of Sector 2. He has to absolutely nail this final sector. So far, it's looked good. Down into a turn 14, keep it nice and tight, pull it over to the left, and through the final corner, a little bit of understeer, runs a bit wide, won't be able to find the ideal traction off the curb. Will it be enough for Weeze Racing?
It is just about in the end for the Renault driver, but only just about. Less than half a tenth of a second there between Elon Tusk and Weeze. And maybe we're finding that Weeze is not a fan of the wet conditions, because we would usually expect him to be right up towards the sort of at least in the middle of the order and probably in the top 10, definitely challenging for Q3. As things stand, he will have another chance because he has made it into Q2, and that is the only hurdle he needed to clear here in this first session of qualifying. So it will be Elon Tusk, Maverick, Ruben, and Kenners who fall out here in Q1. The big surprise there, of course, being Maverick.
Yeah, also give credit where credit's due. Chegwin and Matt, great laps to make it into Q2. Those would be our usual suspects dropping it down, but both of them putting in fantastic laps in these wet conditions. Also, there was a very quick lap from a value of 38.9, and the Finnish driver still showing why he is probably the quickest driver in Formula X racing.
Yeah, for sure. Valu, he can do it in the dry. He can pull 4/10 on the rest of the field in the dry. Apparently, he can do it in the wet as well. The only one into the 138s and only just, but a comfortable margin down to the rest of the field. It's the usual suspects up towards the top in the end, but there was a while where it looked like some of these guys were struggling to get their eye in quite so well. Luppy also, another standout performer here in this session, up in P5. The Dutchman in the Racing Point doing a great job to be only 1,000th of a second behind Vexit and ahead of the likes of Luca, Paris, and Rainbow.
Yeah, I got to do some practice drives with Luppy before my Division 1 race, and he was quick, to say the least. Very, very fast was the Dutchman, and he's going to be hoping to carry that through. Now, there's something interesting I want to bring up, Jacob, for Q2, which is it's still raining. We know the track's going to be drying up, and we assume it's going to be happening in Q2. But there is something interesting, because the race start is going to be in dry conditions. So, if drivers set their fastest lap in Q2 on intermediate tyres, they get a free set of tyres for the race start. If they set it on dry tyres, then they have to start the race on whatever time or whatever tyres that they use in this session. So, even if the dry tyres are a tiny, weensy little bit quicker, it might be better. You might be better off qualifying on those intermediate tyres to have the race strategy advantage.
Yeah, for sure. It's going to be interesting actually to see whether that does come to fruition. Perhaps we'll see all drivers setting lap times in the intermediate conditions, and then all just handshaking and saying, well, we all want fresh tyres at the start. We all want a free choice. Why don't we just leave it here, lads? And sure, that won't happen. I'm sure at least someone will throw a spanner into those plans. That's the sort of thing, that happens in the history of Formula One in general. You get plans like that, and then all of a sudden one person decides they're not going to do it, and then suddenly no one can do it. So, yeah, I think that one probably wouldn't come to fruition, unfortunately. It's the white Ferrari engine cars that are going to be leaving the pits first in the forms of the Alfa Romeos and the Haas. Not tended to be the fastest cars in real life, but have been doing pretty okay thus far in Premier X. As we mentioned earlier, the Alfa Romeo's 4th in the Constructors. The Haas is down in 7th. We're expecting to see them take a bit of a jump up the order once Luca can sort his form out, and maybe Iceman can just find another level. Did look quite good there, Iceman, in the beginning stages of that Q1 session, but got shuffled down the order towards the end. But I don't think he went out to improve that much on his initial time.
Yeah, and going back to what you're talking about, kind of handshaking as, oh no, that is a naughty from Iceman. he should know better than to cut corners, because I'm not sure if it was added to the rules recently, but it is definitely in the rules that you are not allowed to cut corners in qualifying to start your lap earlier. So it's a bit of a naughty there from Iceman. But to go back to what you were talking about, Jacob, about handshakes coming through, my teammate found out the hard way in Division 1. You know, we try to qualify on the medium tires because starting on the softs just is so detrimental to your race strategy. And, well, 5 drivers decided to qualify on softs, and that was enough to knock him out in Q2. So you never know what can happen. And in, you know, these drying conditions, soft tires are so much grippier than the mediums, and you get so much more of an advantage. So there's so many different strategies we could be seeing in the second qualifying session as Iceman starts his first lap in Q2.
Yeah, the Haas driver. It's definitely raining still pretty reasonably heavily out there. Still, of course, light rain by the game standards, but there is still quite a lot of moisture finding its way down onto the circuit. Iceman contending with it pretty okay here. A little bit of understeer there through turn 5, but nothing that will have lost him more than about a tenth of a second, if that. Very nice through turn 6, turn 7, without so much as a squirm in that Haas. It's looking very good thus far this lap. Of course, sometimes I've looked at Iceman and thought, this lap looks perfect, and then he's been about 5 tenths down on the likes of Balu. So we'll have to wait and see. He does go a little bit deep there into turn 8, maybe a little bit deeper than he would have liked. He kept it together through 9, struggling on the traction on the exit there. That will harm him all the way up here through turn 10 as well, because that will be, if not flat, then nearly flat, even in these intermediate conditions. There is a little bit of a lift there, a confidence lift from the Haas. And actually, with him running over the curb on the exit, it was a very sensible lift, because otherwise he would have invalidated, using all of the road in turn 11 as well, and way more of it on the exit. But apparently, he can get away with that because he has not picked up an invalidation.
Yeah, he has got no invalidations. This lap will count. And, you know, going back to what you were saying about Iceman's lap, they look smooth, but they're not always fast. And it was one of the things that I first noticed when I started to, you know, have the privilege of seeing the likes of Danny Berejne qualifying and James Baldwin. All of their laps, it always looked like they were on the absolute limit. Like, if they went 1 mile an hour quicker through a corner, they would lose that back end, and they were always fighting with the traction as Iceman does another naughty. Doesn't take away a marker board, but yeah, you have to be on that limit. You have to be constantly fighting for the traction. And that's what makes the difference between the good drivers and the great drivers. You know, the likes of Jarno Otmir and Frederick Rasmussen.
Yeah, for sure. And Iceman, I mean, it was a very good lap time in the end. It's still second after 5 drivers have come across the line. Still second after 6 have come across the line. And when it came through, it was the fastest lap we'd seen thus far in qualifying. The Rainbow was able to go just a couple of tenths faster there at the very top. But it is standing up to scrutiny very nicely now in the 139s. And Chegwin's had a bit of a misadventure on his lap by the look of things, down in the 146s. But other than that, we're seeing pretty similar lap times, just a little bit faster across the board, really, compared to Q1. As Paris now goes fastest with a 139 to 17, lowering the bar considerably there by 4 tenths of a second.
Yeah, remember though, we saw Valu put in a 38.9 in Q1, and these times are going to drop when that rain starts coming down that little bit less as Ulas pushing. Well, I said you need to be on the constant edge of traction. Ulas was definitely on the edge of traction right there.
Yeah, that was a big effort there from Ulas to hold it all together. It's not very neat here through the tight and twisty section before turn 5. He was wide on the entry to turn 5, or sort of not wide, rather, too much on the inside of the entry to turn 5, and that compromised his angle through there. So that was a bit of a rough sector, opening sector of the lap for Ulas. But, you know, maybe it's going to be one of those ones where it looks really messy and it's actually so much faster than the ones that look neat and tidy. Sometimes, if you're just going 5 kilometers an hour, 6 kilometers an hour faster through every single corner, that will be enough, even if you do have some of those major moments. Maranello, that's speaking of major moments, hold on, he's out.
Where has he done that? He's lost the back end really late on the exit of 11. I think the car's already been removed, so that's a really late place to lose it. And maybe he just got a little bit too late on the brakes, or just had a massive tank slapper and just tried to control it and just went on for so long. Then he eventually lost the wheel, but that's going to make it a little bit easier for one driver to make it into 2-3. Ulas wouldn't be on that cusp, or we wouldn't expect Ulas to be on that cusp, as Paris Barrel puts in a 38.869 faster than what Valou did in Q1. What can Ulas do? 39.6. He's in the top 3.
Yeah, matches Rainbow's time to the 1000th there, but nevertheless goes faster. I do wonder, actually, if it was out on the exit of turn 10, the Marankello lost it. There's a hole in the wall between the sort of exit of turn 10 and the beginning of turn 12. And I wonder if he spun onto the inside there, lost the wheel, and then the car sort of drifted through that hole in the wall. It could not certain. I mean, it's not necessarily the more likely, but it would be a more sensible place to at least lose the car than right here, because at this point you're no longer sort of traction limited anymore. So either it was a huge attempt to save it and just a slide that went on forever, or he lost it on the exit of turn 10 and then sort of drifted onto the other part of the track.
That sounds pretty much like what could have happened. Very easy to lose it through turn 10. We saw it happen to Ken as we saw Paris Barrel invalidate a lap on the exit of T10 as well. Calcifer, though, what can he pull out? Both Williams drivers yet to complete a lap, and Calcifer will cross the line in 39.5, but the Estonian is still pushing.
Yeah, I mean, it's respectable by his standards, but it's not much more than that, actually. A 1:39.5, he'll be a little bit disappointed with that lap time, I'm sure. Especially if it does start to dry up, but not all the way towards the end of the session. That's the sort of time that isn't really good enough to guarantee you a slot. Paris is probably more or less safe with that 1:38.8, unless things get absolutely bone dry out here. Calcifer, though, shows where he lost some of the time last time around. 4 tenths up on his previous lap time through Sector 1 alone.
Yep, and that's going to be enough to put him right on the cusp of Paris Barrel for that top spot. As long as he can find a bit more time, he's got his teammate Vexit a little bit behind him, and Vexit was only a tenth slower, 39.6 on that last lap. As I think we just saw someone jump up the order. Was that Rainbow going up to P4?
Rainbow being able to improve. Ulas having done the same recently as well. Down into the lower 139s we go. There's still most riders in that 139 mark as Calcifer. That's the sort of moment that I think maybe Marankello had on the exit of turn 10. And maybe we saw Calcifer just holding it a little bit better than the reserve driver in the Ferrari was able to do. Of course, this is all conjecture. We didn't actually get to see it. Thinking a little bit of the inside curve through turn 12 there for Calcifer. Don't think he would have wanted to do that, as it did force him a little bit wide on the exit onto the exit curb, which is slippery at the best of times, and in the wet even more so. So I don't think that was quite to plan there, that final sector for Calcifer, but the last corner was very nice indeed. No more space on the apex there, and across the line we go. Where's it going to be?
Looking all right. 39.3, improved slightly, but not by that much. Vexit, though, he pulls a 39.1 out of the hat. So, you know, again, we're seeing those top 6 drivers just being in a class of their own right now. And we'll have to see whether the likes of Luca, Iceman, maybe even Weeze can join that battle.
Yeah, once again, Iceman just setting the one lap at the beginning of the session and then heading back into the pits. He still only has that 1:39.869, and there's been some track improvement since then in terms of the conditions. So we might well see, when Iceman goes and sets this flying lap, him jumping up at least to the coattails of Rainbow and Ulas. That's the very least of what he will be hoping for here. He needs to know that he's in contention with those top 6 drivers. He needs to prove that he isn't just that sort of 7th, 8th place driver. He's finished 7th and 8th thus far this season in the 2 races. So, or 8th and 7th, I think, actually, in that order. But, you know, he wants to prove that he can step up from that point to just get a little bit better, get a little bit more points coming in for the Husky.
Yeah, and of course, Iceman, very young. I think only 15, if I recall correctly. So there's a lot of talent in the Macedonian as he goes 1.5 tenths quicker through Sector 1. Of course, he's still 5 tenths down on Rainbow, maybe about 3 tenths after that first sector. So let's see if Iceman can hook up the rest of the lap as he makes his way now down into turn 8 and 9, but he just runs wide. Doesn't quite take enough a curb through 8. And that probably cost him, you know, almost half a second, I'd reckon.
Yeah.
We'll see when he crosses that sector 2 delta mark.
Yeah, and that's actually the exact same, like the only part of his first flying lap that we were also on board for that I thought there was a mistake in was there. He did that, but less so in the first lap. This time around, he went much deeper into that turn 8, but that was looking like it was going to be an issue as he invalidates through turn 11 as well. So this has not been a shining example of a lap for the Macedonian, unfortunately. Rainbow retires from the session. That is just in the pits. So the Mercedes driver definitely doesn't think it's going to be drying up towards the end of this one, and Vexit evidently agrees. as the Williams driver also retires. Iceman evidently not with enough fuel to go around again. Straight back into the pits for him, so he'll want to go back out because I don't think he'll be feeling comfortable there. It's only 0.2 of a second safe right now to his teammate Luca in 10th, and he would expect Luca to be able to improve.
Yeah, and we're going to be... I don't think the track's drying up. I can still see the rain falling, so we're going to have to wait for Q3 for those dry runs to come through. Let's see what Luca can pull out. He is on a hot lap. He's got his ERS in mode 2, which is usually a signal that the driver is pushing. And right now, he's on that dropout zone, sandwiched in between the two Alfa Romeos. Only needs a 10th to jump ahead of AJ.
Yeah, he needs to get a decent lap time in here, because at the moment he is on the bubble, and he does not want to be out in Q2, as he was in China. He needs to be getting to Q3. And, you know, the further up the grid you are, the higher quality of drivers you tend to be racing around. And the less likely you are to get mired in sort of incidents and sort of petty fights down, and that you tend to get between sort of 7th and below. The top few drivers tend to just be, okay, we're just going to sit here in a DRS train, we're going to drive away from the rest of the field while they all squabble behind us. And you do not want to be behind that. You need to be ahead of that inevitable battle that happens towards the bottom end of the point. Because that's where people start to get desperate and think, I need to start passing people if I'm to have any hope of winning this race. And that's why we see them getting a little bit more reckless and costing each other a bit more time. So Luca will want to be in Q3 to give himself a chance of avoiding that particular kerfuffle.
Yep, and Luca jumps up to P7, jumps ahead of his teammate. He's got 2 more laps, including the lap he is on now to improve A2 UK on a 40.1 currently, getting the good old rev glitch. Will A2 be able to improve? Both Alfa Romeos not making it out in China, but then again in China, they started P11, P12, potentially the best place to start in if you're not going to be qualifying into the top 3. And then last time out at Baku, they both made it into Q3. Will Alfa Romeo be able to repeat that performance back at Baku?
Starting to think that in qualifying, at least, seeing the Alphas in about 10th and 11th is going to become a very familiar sight. Got both the Renaults behind them. Usually you expect Wies to be cut just a little bit ahead of these guys, but still not really able to get together quite. In the Renault, in these damp conditions, Wies struggling more than we would usually expect. It might be a track thing, but it also might be a wet conditions thing, as Valu has now gone fastest, by the way, ahead of Paris and Burrell, but only just. So the track not improving by that much at this stage, as A2 UK comes across the line up into 8th. He goes, puts Iceman under a little bit more pressure there, and knocks his own teammate AJ down into the drop zone for now. AJ also 2 1/4 tenths down in that opening sector of the lap, so not improving as much as he would like.
Yep, and hopefully he'll get time for one more lap. Again, it says that Q2 has ended, but sometimes there is that little bit of a delay, and us as spectators has that countdown a little bit lower than the drivers by about 30 seconds to a minute. So AJ might get one more lap. Iceman is going to have to push and get another lap through. Luppy's across the line, and apparently he's got the checkered flag out, but let's see if he can still push. I think he just completed an outlap. Also, Valu and Paris Burrell separated by 0.003 of a second at the top of the standing.
Max in the pits, he's not going to be making it into Q3. Can AJ go different and go up into the top 10 as he comes across the line? Now it's 8th. And that does knock Luppy down into 11th. We've seen him take the checkered flag, so he will not be able to respond. Wies Racing and Chegwin, Cheg Fried Rice, are the two who are going to look to try and improve. Chegwin comes across the line and does not improve. So it's only going to be 14th for him, but a good effort nevertheless to get through to Q2 as Valu goes even faster at the very top. Now Wies is the only one who can do something now to try and get through it. Iceman, who's on the bubble, if not Iceman, A2 UK. Those two are still out there and pushing on their own laps right now, though, as Wies gets a little bit deep here into turn 14. He's going to have to get it back along the other side of the road for turn 15. Didn't quite get as good an angle as he would have liked. And now up towards the line we go. Is it enough for the German in the Renault? No, it is not. He doesn't even beat his teammate. So Max out qualifying Wies there in the Renault team. And as a result, we will see Lucky, Max, Wies, Chegwin, and Marankello falling out here in Q2.
Yeah, Iceman goes across the line. He improves. The A2 drops down to P10. But of course, that does not change the drivers that will be making it to Q3. 3, Luppy, Max, Reese. So both Racing Points, both Renaults out, as well as the lone Ferrari in this race. That is not good for Racing Point and Renault. I mean, I think Max has done a great job in this qualifying session, but Weiss, I personally expected him to be a little bit higher up the order.
Yeah, as we were mentioning, Weiss is the sort of driver we usually expect to be qualifying on a default day, 7th or 8th, thereabouts, right? But on this occasion, falling out only down in 13th, I think he was, at the checkered flag there. So not really what he would have been hoping for, and definitely surprising to see him being outdone by his teammate, if only by 0.008 of a second. Both Renaults going out in Q2 then, and both Racing Points, as you mentioned. The Hasses and the Alphas just about making it through. And, you know, if it almost looks like the sort of standings you would see until you get to the top 6, the sort of standings you might see if this was if the cars weren't equal, and if it was sort of season 8 of a career mode or whatever, and the cars had completely different paces, but it doesn't look like equal cars because all the teammates are in a similar sort of place, which is unusual to see.
Yeah, and you definitely know that whoever was playing the game had started in Williams, and that's why they're so high up the order. Ulas trying to join the likes of Paris and Valu at the top of the standings, and then Valu just saying, no, I'm in a different league, and improves by 0.3. But something to remember is that, of course, we have dry and wet weather racing in qualifying and in the race, and different people will be running with different strategies. You don't know if one person's using a wet setup, if one person's using a dry setup, and this could be changing how things runs throughout the race, because of course, you know, if it's just wet in the race or dry in the race, you know, you take whatever setup you need for the race. But because we have changing conditions, it makes it so hard to make that decision, and I think we're going to be seeing people on different setups.
Yeah, we'll have to see whether some drivers are going out on those wet setups, some going out on the dry. I mean, you can go a bit of a halfway house as well. You can just say, okay, I'm going to run a dry setup, I'm going to run a higher ride height than usual, because it is the ride height that makes the biggest difference in the wet conditions. So you can sort of give yourself a half wet setup that doesn't completely compromise your dry setup, particularly at a track like Paul Ricard, where, you know, you don't need to have that low of a drag profile around here. There are some decently long straights, but it's not the be-all and end-all like it is at certain other tracks, for instance, Baku, as we saw last time out. So now we are seeing the drivers getting out there into Q3. The rain's still coming down. It's not looking like it's getting dry anytime soon. It can change pretty quickly in this game, but I'd be surprised if we get onto full dry tires, even by the end of this qualifying section.
Yeah, I don't think everyone's going to come out of the pits. I think most people will stay in the pits, because if it is going to dry, then, you know, even if you do have to do your lap on intermediate tires, it will still be quicker. And I honestly think any banker time you do at the start of Q3 won't do you any good. And it'll actually do you a lot of bad, because remember that these drivers are using their intermediate tires. They had to use it in Q1, they've had to use it in Q2, and now they're using it in Q3 as well. The race is wet. They're going to need those intermediate tires for the race. And because we assume that we're going, you know, from dry to full wet and then back down to intermediates, they want to have at least 2 fresh set of intermediate tires. So keeping a fresh set of inters, or at least 2 fresh set of inters, will be so useful.
Yeah, definitely. And we'll see. You know, at the moment, Luca sitting there on the Redwood soft tires in the pit, so he reckons it's going to dry up just a little bit here and doesn't feel the need to come out of pit lane quite yet. Himself, Vexit, and Ulas all still in there, so I think all 3 of those are waiting for it to dry up, and they think that it's inevitable that it will. They, of course, do have more information than we do at this stage. They have the in-game forecasts available to them, which might well suggest that the rain clouds will dissipate, as they're already starting to do just a little bit here, as we can see over the end of turns 5 and 6 there, as Paris got a little bit deep there into turn 3, but held it all together nicely in the McLaren, using the curb, confident enough to do that despite the damp conditions through turn 6, and that looked all relatively neat and tidy. No problem through 7 either, as he lays the power down.
Yep, and now let's see if he makes the same mistakes that we saw Iceman making down into turn 8. Put the braking point about 90 meters. Get right up on that curb. You can take even more. You can completely cut it pretty much without getting a penalty. So I think there's a little bit more time there for Paris Burrell. Either way, he gets a good exit on to the run. Now down into turn 10. Let's see if he keeps it completely flat. Not even a hint of a lift on the exit. That rear end just wants to step out, and you can see how much confidence Paris has. I wonder if the drivers will have that same amount of confidence once we get into the race. And now turn 12 off camber. So difficult, as you mentioned previously, Jacob. And you can see now the rain has stopped falling. But don't forget, it's overcast. It won't dry up that quickly. Either way, I think we're going to see drivers heading out maybe with about 4 minutes remaining to do 2 laps on those soft tires. Maybe they'll risk it for that one final lap.
Yeah, I mean, while we know, and while they know that the rain is going to stop, it's not a given how quickly the track is going to dry. There are plenty of drivers out there circulating right now, and it does tend to dry quickly enough that there should be enough time to run soft tires at the end of this session. But I'd still want to be out there on the inters if I could, just to get a banker lap in case it doesn't get to the dry tire stage quite in time for the end of the session. Will Calcifer commit to this lap? He is going to, so not diving straight back into the pits in the Williams, as A2 UK and AJ have also managed to set times with 1:39.9s, comfortably below Paris Burrell, but doing all right. Calcifer up towards the line, he goes, and he goes into second there, close, but not close enough to what the McLaren driver has managed for the very, very provisional pole.
And I wouldn't be surprised if the guys are out on the intermediate tires they use in Q1, because, you know, we saw 38s coming through from, well, 4 drivers got into the 38s, Value got into the mid-38s. Iceman, is he going to dive in the pits? No, he's going to stay out, but I'm pretty sure Iceman will dive into the pits at the end of this lap, because everyone will want either softs or fresh set of intermediates for that final lap or two, and you can start to see a bit of a dry line forming. Iceman pulling over to the right, A, because it gives you a good start to set up, and B, also keeps your tires that little bit cool. And Iceman, he's being naughty. Nobody's told him yet that he's not allowed to do that, and he's continuing to cut parts of the circuit.
Yeah, someone's going to have a word with him, let him know to probably stop doing that if he wants to avoid too harsh a reprimand here, as Vexit comes through the final corner now in the Williams, the 3rd team he's driven for thus far this season as the resident reserve driver, and he goes up to the top of the order with a 1:39.1. So that is comfortably faster than everyone else until Valu comes across the line and blows it completely out of the water. Into the mid 1:38s we go. It's a 1:38.6. And once again, Valu just goes significantly faster than anyone else has been able to thus far.
Yep, and let's see what Ulas can pull out, because we know he's been quick throughout qualifying. At the end of Sector 1, let's see if he goes purple. No, he doesn't. 25.0. A decent time, but not quite enough. And now, I think it's pretty much dry. I would love to see what the kind of tire temps are for the drivers, but once you get to the point where you don't see any spray from the cars, I think that's generally a good sign to jump into the pits. And you're going to see now from Valu up ahead how much spray there is, and yeah, there's a bit of spray. It's going to be nip and tuck with whether the drivers want to be on inters or slicks for that final run.
Yeah, you can still see the residue coming off of the front tyres of Ulas there as well on board with the Red Bull driver. He's yet to set a lap time as he comes through turn 11 here, so he'll want to get across the line. Trouble is, it's a bit of a conundrum right now, because if you want to have enough time to go for, you know, to be comfortable in getting out there on the soft tyres, you probably don't want to complete this lap. But Ulas is yet to set a lap time, and there's not necessarily a guarantee he'll quite get to dry conditions. So he's got a big decision to make right here, and it looks like the decision is firmly to stay out and continue to register this lap time on the intermediate tyres. And as soon as he makes that decision, DRS is enabled, which is the biggest hell of all to let you know it's time for the dry tyres, as Ulas comes across the line and does go up into 7th, but only 7th. So the Turkish driver, under pressure, needs to get back to the pit sharpish. Not going to take any Iceman line. Oh, never mind. He will take an Iceman line to do.
He takes the semi-Iceman line. You know, he's not completely ice, but he's, you know, he took the slush puppy line, the slush man line.
Indeed, yeah, that was You know, it gets him back to the pits a little bit faster. I can see why he wants to do it, but in these moments you can't do that. It's part of the game that you have to struggle to get back into the pits, and it's why these decisions they're making right now are so important.
Yep, and Rainbow here bought his lap, he was a 10th up, but everyone will be going on to soft tires, and those laps that everyone did on the intermediate tires are completely worthless now. Sure, the only thing that has really helped them do is just get more of the feel for the track, and I wouldn't be surprised if the drivers were maybe doing some race runs, you know, putting in 20 laps of fuel, something like that, and then just putting in laps. Maybe not Valu, considering that was a 38.6, but then again, it is Valu, so I don't know if I'd be surprised if he pulls out a 38 on a full tank of fuel.
Indeed. So we'll have to wait and see, but yeah, Valu has been very, very impressive thus far in this qualifying and thus far in all of the previous qualifying we've seen as well. China was the big one, but he will have a chance to show his worth here once again on a relatively dry track. Not completely dry, but relatively dry. Ulas is still hot-footing it back to the pits and should make it just in time to strap on a set of soft. It's going to be a close run thing, ignoring the pit lane speed limiter, but you can get away with that in qualifying. And now should be just enough time. 2 minutes and 30 remaining in the session, plus a bit for whatever the spectator delay is.
Yeah, he's going to jump in the pits, head straight back up. But, Jacob, the point is here, the track is still drying, you know, it's still not rubbed in, it's still that little bit green. Whoever sets the last lap has a significant advantage, and, well, we've seen IRL what's happened at tracks like Monza, with drivers trying to get superior track position. But it seems Vexit, he doesn't care about that. He's just going to go straight on out. But I stand by, I think whoever sets that final lap, if it's, you know, one of our top 6 drivers, I think they will be setting that pole time.
All right, well, we'll see whether that's going to be the case or not. It'll be interesting to see. There might well be some dueling going on between the drivers at the very back to try and be the last one out. Ulas is probably going to get the rights to being the last one out, and he's probably going to have to push pretty hard on his outlap as well. Hopefully he doesn't start cutting any more corners to make it round in time, because it's going to be touch and go, honestly, as he's only just leaving the pits now. 1 minute 30 remaining in the session, probably plus that little extra margin though, so he might just about be okay. But I don't know if that only applies to Q1 or not as well, so we'll have to wait and see whether there's going to be enough time for the Turkish driver in the Red Bull to make it. Currently sitting down in 7th, would not be good enough by his standards, but it would still be his best qualifying of the 2 he's participated in this season.
Yep, and I'm going to make a prediction, Jacob. I think pole time is going to be a 28.0. I think if it was completely dry, I think we'd be seeing these guys getting, you know, pretty much doing a 26.9 maybe, but definitely low 27s. I think because it's still that little bit green, it's going to be that bit slower. So actually, I think I'm going to go with a 27.8. 27.8. That's my pole time prediction.
Well, you just cut it down by 1.1 seconds and convincing yourself they're going to go considerably faster. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see just how accurate that will be, as Vexit runs a little bit wide on the exit of the final corner and thus compromises his run down this straight just a little bit here. So not the way he would have wanted to start off his flying lap. That outlap, by the way, was a 1:39, so I think we are going to see some comfortable improvements from these drivers. That much is for sure. Of course, with the track being slick conditions now on those dry tyres, it should all be okay for them as we go into turn 5, cutting a lot of the inside curve there. One thing to note, of course, because it's basically one-shot qualifying now, the pressure is on to the maximum for these drivers not to invalidate their lap times, and Vexit was cutting a lot of the corners as much as he could in the opening sector there, but not so much that he was going to invalidate. Looks like qualifying may have ended. We yet to see the outlaps, and I think they're going to be able to come through. Ulas up towards the line now. Ulas didn't make it. Okay, so 7th at best.
I think that's just a glitch. I'm sure he can still do a lap. Vexit, though, still pushing. Remember, he invalidated his lap as Ulas, I think, might have invalidated his lap. So Ulas now, I think, is out of the session because of whatever invalidation he called. Vexit 6 seconds up through the first couple of sectors, and he's still pushing. Will this be enough? It's definitely going to be provisional pole.
Yeah, it'll be provisional pole, but for how long is the question. Currently sitting 3rd in the order in the intermediate running. It could be a whole different kettle of fish in the dry conditions. He uses the curb on the exit again through turn 15 up towards the line. What's it going to be? The benchmark time is a 1:27.6, so they're already faster than you thought they were going to go. Now here comes AJ up towards the line. He can't match it. A 1:28.0, a respectable time for the Alfa Romeo driver nevertheless. Here comes his teammate. A2 UK up towards the checkered line. He comes, and he can't even beat his teammate. A further 0.4 of a second down. It's 0.4 between the top three, and now it's only 0.5 between Balu and Vexit as the Finnish driver goes top. Iceman, bottom of those on the dry tyres right now, and it's Luca out of nowhere in the Haas to take provisional pole. Rainbow's come across the line. He's only 5th. Paris Barrel, he takes it away for pole, and now it's just Calcifer. What can the Williams driver do? Did he do it? We'll have to wait and find out in a moment. No, he didn't. Paris Burrell takes it.
He did indeed. I wonder if Calcifer invalidated his lap at the end. He did indeed. So I got one prediction right, which is the final driver to set a lap took a pole. But damn, those are top of 4, separated by just 1/10 of a second. And you have to think, if Calcifer and Ulas had done their laps as well, they probably would have been right in the thick of things as well.
And look at this. When the pressure was on, Paris, Luca, Valu, Vexit, they all stepped up to the plate. Rainbow, Iceman, and Calcifer, they all had issues. Calcifer invalidated his lap, and Rainbow and Iceman, their laps are definitely not representative of what they should be able to do here. So neither of them able to get a clean run in the end. Both the Alphas, hard to say what their maximum pace would have been, so they might not have choked. But, you know, there's a bit of a difference there. The pressure was on, and some of them faltered.
Some of them faltered indeed. Calcifer, our race winner from Azerbaijan, can't set a lap on those slick tires, and now he's going to be starting down in P9. And don't forget, every single driver will have a fresh set of tires for the start of the race. You can see the track for the race. It is dry, it is overcast, and there is rain forecasted to arrive. When that will arrive, we don't know. And there are so many different strategies that could be coming into play tonight, Jacob.
Absolutely. The rain coming halfway through a race is always what you want. It's better than a full wet race because it just gives so many different permutations for the strategy. Of course, the drivers have an idea of when the rain is going to come in, but there's some tolerance on either direction, when it's going to start raining and how hard it's going to start raining when it does. So yeah, there's still a lot to be found out for these drivers out here right now, and flexibility will be part of the name of the game. Adaptability as well. So the drivers, it's these sorts of conditions, these sorts of races that tends to separate the wheat from the chaff.
Yep. And we know Valu is not one of the wheat. Now, Paris Burrell, he'll be hoping he doesn't get that old disconnect glitch. And this time, he can start from the front of the grid without any issues at all. Remember, he qualified down in P6 for round 1. Wasn't here for the second race of the season. And now he has a prime starting position here at Paul Ricard. He's got Luca alongside Valu down in P3 with Vexit in P4. So, I mean, if Paris thinks, you know, Luca is that little bit inconsistent. Remember, when we did those power rankings, Jacob, we talked about Luca being inconsistent. Luca qualified P2 at Azerbaijan, and he dropped down the order. Paris will be wanting that clean, fresh start, and just to pull away from the field. And hopefully we can take a quick look at the tires everyone will be starting on. But I would expect mediums for everyone, as I think I already saw a couple of drops of rain.
Oh, I tell you what, the softs, look how many of them have gone for the softs. Paris is the only member of the top 8 on the mediums. And then Calcifer's on hards, which is a really strange decision. It's raining already, as you mentioned. So the soft drivers may have pulled an absolute masterstroke here as Lappy's left the session. I hope he's going to be okay. He might be suffering with some very cold tires at the start of the race. Hopefully not for him. Calcifer, this is a clanger from him to start on those hard tires.
Yeah, and Calcifer is the worst of everyone. He's gone for the hards. He must have known that rain was coming fairly soon. It does give you a decent indicator of when that rain will arrive, and Calcifer's gone for the completely wrong strategy. But looking at that rain, okay, there are 2 strategies that could happen. Either you can pit pretty much at the end of lap 1 for those intermediate tires. You can see that rain's falling pretty hard, and I think if you're Calcifer, you definitely do that. If you're the soft tire runners, I think you try to push it to lap 4 and maybe go for full wet, but it depends on how much grip you think you can have, how little time you can lose. And I'm not saying that's the best strategy, but it is a potential strategy call.
Indeed, and there's actually one thing. It used to be a case on the old game, certainly. The harder compound dry tires were better in the wet conditions than the softer ones were. I don't know if that's still the case now or not. It's been a minute, but I remember doing very well in a race because I started on hards when everyone else started on soft. So maybe that might apply for Calcifer here as we are lining up on the grid. The lights are going out. There they go, and wait for them to go for the drivers as well. Looks like Luppy has had a full start in the background. They're not sure what's happened, but off the line we go. Paris with a dreadful start. There's carbon fiber flying in the background already, but it's Valu already up into the lead, but Luca challenging him side by side through turn 1. Through turn 2 they go, and Valu's pushed wide. Luca has the inside line for turn 3, but he's going to have to be the last of the late breakers down there. He is so as he gets his nose just ahead. Valu keeping alongside, but forced to concede in the end. Maverick has picked up a 5-second penalty for corner cutting already and gaining a place. Not sure if that has anything to do with Lucky's issues.
Calcifer and A2UK are pretty much side by side as well, as now Iceman's looking to have a go at AJ Haas versus Alfa Romeo, and that's AJ just slamming the door shut on the Macedonian.
Yeah, you could tell that the predicted pit stop strategy does not know what's going on there, so we can ignore that one. As Paris now battling with Valu, trying to get back past on those medium tyres. Had a poor getaway off the line on that harder compound compared to the rest of the soft runners around, and that's, to be honest, what we should have expected. Vexit now looking to challenge Paris as well through turn 11. They're all going to stick in place for now until we get further behind, where Iceman making the move on AJ, and Ulas up his inside as well, forces the Alfa Romeo wide, will come back on track ahead of the Red Bull driver. Kenners, by the way, he's had a storming start. He was 19th on the grid. He's up into 10th. Both Renaults have gained a couple of positions as well. Is that someone into the pits already? And it is Kenners who's rolling the dice even more. A great start. And now he's the first one into the pits. Elon Tusk matches him as well. Vexit's got past Paris up towards the front, but no, Paris fights back there. Forces Vexit wide, and here comes Rainbow interested in the fight down to turn 3 as well. He'll have the inside line on the Williams driver. They are going to battle, and that's going to give Paris a little bit of breathing space up ahead. Rainbow should have that position bought and paid for into turn 5, and he does so with the inside line.
And the crucial thing right now is that because Kenneth is pitted and Elon Tusk has pitted as well, if they are in comms with their teammates, they will be able to get information on whether those intermediate tires are faster, which could be so crucial. We're seeing an Alfa Romeo having a look at Ulas, and that is going to be AJ down into a turn 8. Has he got the move done? No, he hasn't. He's still in P8 for now.
AJ battling with Ulash back there, yeah, and that's still all going on. A2UK having a pretty poor start, falling down the order. AJ, his teammate as well, so it's not been an opening lap to remember for the Alfa Romeos, and Luppy, I still don't think is in control of his car either right now, as we can't actually see the race right now, so that's going to limit our ability to commentate on it. But here we go now, battling once again.
All running wide.
Exit Rainbow into the back of Paris there, who's pushed even further wide. They're still going side by side in the background as well. But up here at the front, it's Luca from Valu, then 3 seconds down to Paris. They're all heading into the pits right now. Rainbow stayed out.
Paris has a 5-second time penalty. He sped into the pit lane. The one mistake, and everyone's trying to gain no pit position. The other question to remember is, will there be any double stacking? I don't think two drivers of the same team have come in, and now it's Rainbow leading from A2UK. It's going to be AJ dropping down the order because he's come into the pits as well.
Look at this hold for Max as well. That's a disaster for the Renault team as he gets held as several drivers go flying past. So we should see Luca coming back out in the lead here, unless Kenners and Elon have had an incredible outlap on their intermediate tyres, but I don't think they would have been fast enough, and they indeed were not. The Dries look to have been the faster tyre over the course of that lap. Kenners should reclaim the positions ahead of some of these guys. He's going to be coming out alongside Max here into turn 1, maybe. No, the Renault driver holds on, but it's Kenners and Calcifer battling over 12th and 13th right now, and I bet that's not what Calcifer would have expected at this stage of the race.
No, it's not. And also keep an eye, look at AJ, he dropped down the order. Remember, he was battling with Ulas for P8, so something happened. There was contact on the in-lap, and Calcifer's down the inside of Kenners on those slightly fresher intermediate tires, and I think he's got the job done.
Ooh, a couple of cars running off the road there. There's Marankello involved in all that fracas, as well as Kenners is now losing more and more positions. It was a great opening lap, but down to 14th now for the Red Bull. And Czech Fried Rice is looking to make it 15th. Luca has managed to pass Weeze Racing on the road and is now looking to get Ruben as well up for third. Marankello able to get past Kenners, hold on to that position. For now, Weeze is struggling so much on those medium tires, same for Ruben on the softs. And the really bad news for the Mercs is they're both going to have to double stack in the pits if they want to come in at the end of this lap, unless they're waiting for those full wet conditions, as you mentioned, might be a potential strategy. Paris, of course, with that 5-second penalty to his name, is still doing well, though, making his way back up towards the rear ends of Luca and Valu. Still 3 seconds between them for now, as Rainbow and A2 both head into the pit lane.
Yeah, and the gap between A2 and Luca was about 5 seconds when they came out of the pits. It's dropped to about 2.5. So that is way too late in the pits from Luca and A2, as well as the Mercedes drivers, and this is going to cost them so much. But look at the spray, it is increasing by so much, and in a couple of laps, you have to feel that these drivers are going to be putting on those full wet tires.
Yeah, we'll have to see how long that's going to be. Everyone now on those intermediates, so no one's going to be able to pull the dries to full wet strategy, unfortunately for them. Rainbow has lost out heavily. I think he was down in P10. I caught a glimpse of there just before we couldn't see the order anymore. But yeah, Rainbow losing out in this early stage. I think both Mercs have lost out pretty significantly. Neither of them taking the option to pit on the same lap as everyone else. It was a brave idea, but it has not paid off, as Kenners is somehow back into 11th. Elon Tusk falling down the order in the McLaren. Looks to have had a spin on the exit of turn 1 there. As meanwhile, up at the front, it's all much calmer, with Luca still leading from Valu, a second back to the Sidemax Motorwork teammate there, but not teammates here in Premier X, as they are representing the Haas and the AlphaTauri teams respectively. The gap to Paris is remaining pretty much identical, as well as Valu picks up a 3-second time penalty there in second. So that's going to be great news. Music to the ears of Luca up in first.
Yeah, and don't forget, it is raining. It is tricky to overtake in the wet conditions, and there isn't any more dry spells predicted for the remainder of the race. So Luca, he's doing a phenomenal job. As long as he can just keep it on the track, not make any significant mistakes, he might be in for his first win of the season. Not just his first win, his first position ahead of P15. This is a great return to form for not only Luca, but Iceman as well, who's up to P5.
Let's just take a minute to evaluate the order now. Everyone's coming to the pits as well. Max is doing a great job to be up in 7th right now, as Calcifer looks to make it 8th with the dive up the inside. The Williams driver has recovered a fair way up through the order after his relatively poor opening. That Marankello's gained some positions. Rainbow lost out, as we mentioned earlier. Kenners and Chegwin have both gained, and Chegwin's just gained even more as he gets past his old Racing Point teammate from the previous season. AJ and A2UK, the Alfa Romeos, have had a disastrous start to this race, as they're down in 13th and 15th. Weeze at the very back as well, after staying out an extra lap on those medium tires. So it just gets from bad to worse here for Weeze in the Renault. But meanwhile, his teammate Max is having a great day, of course. Does have that 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane in his back pocket, which he does have to be worried about. And he also has to be pretty worried about Calcifer all over his rear wing, but he's withstanding the pressure admirably at the moment in that Renault.
Yep, and now Calcifer's going to have a little look. Max will go defensive. Calcifer around the outside. Can he find the grip? They're going to squeeze each other. And Calcifer through a turn 9. Surely will get the job done. Still side by side, but the Williams driver just finds that slightly superior traction. He'll have Max on his rear end, but the slipstream just not strong enough in the wet. Calcifer's up to P7. We also missed Ulas jumping ahead of Iceman. That was down into turn 3 earlier in the lap. So Iceman now down to P6.
Yeah, Iceman falling down there. But doing a good job at the moment in the Haas right now, as we are seeing quite a train forming here behind Max. Calcifer having been able to escape that particular issue, but now Marankello and Rainbow in particular, he's out of position right now. We don't really know what to expect from the Ferrari of Marankello, as he looks to maybe lose a position here, giving enough space on the inside to Rainbow as they're going side by side in the background. And still going to be battling all the way down into turn 1 as well. But it looks like Rainbow has managed to get that position away from the stand-in Ferrari driver. And the Lithuanian is looking to recover, now has Max in his sights.
Valu's still sticking with Luca, but Paris Baron is closing in, as is Vexit. And to be honest, there's going to be one more real opportunity for these drivers to jump ahead, and that's going to be at the crossover point from Inters to Wets. There'll be another crossover from Wets back to Inters, but that's where Valu, he needs to find the jump. He needs to find the right lap to pit. For Paris Barrel, he's not in a good position because he's got that 5-second penalty that will be served in his next stop, so he will actually drop behind FXR. Now Rainbow looks for the move on Max.
Going up the inside here, trying to catch him out with a late move, but Max, more than a match around the outside of turn 8. Great driving there from the Renault guy, and now Marinkello looking to get involved with Rainbow. That position was stolen from under his nose only a lap ago, and the Ferrari driver wants it back, but he's not going to be able to take it, as Rainbow is still clinging on to 9th position at the moment. Max still holding these guys up quite a lot there, as someone who I don't think was intended to join the session has joined the session, Carlos Abrao. I'm not actually familiar with, but yeah, I don't think he's meant to be here, so yeah, I don't think we'll see him participating in this race. As meanwhile, at the very back of the field, Weeze has managed to get past Elon Tusk, relegating the Canadian down into 19th and last in this race.
Yeah, and I think Rainbow won't be too happy with Max. There'll be some strong words, I'm sure, in the Premier FXR chat later on, because Max just slammed the door shut across Rainbow. In my opinion, a little bit too aggressively. Rainbow, though, is going to go for a move again. Max goes defensive. Rainbow looks for the inside, and Rainbow switches back to the outside, side by side through turn 1 and 2.
Yeah, still going to be battling down to 3 as well, but Max struggling over the curbing on the exit of 2 means he's going to get a worse run. It'll have to be a dive bomb up the inside, but he goes for it nevertheless. He's not giving up in this battle with Rainbow, but it is going to be the Mercedes driver who takes it, and now Max might find himself losing not 1 but 2 positions. Forces the Ferrari to get out of it there through turn 5 by slamming the door emphatically in the face of the reserve driver. And while they are losing a lot of time battling to the cars ahead, Chegwin hasn't really been able to cruise up to the back of this lot, so it's still looking okay for Max, as he will still be happy with 9th position and 10th if Marinkello manages to get past as well. That's still a decent result for the German.
Yep, and well, Max is still in a great position, looking his best result of the season so far. P13 at Baku, P19 back at China after, well, remember that crazy spin on the exit of the long right hander that Rainbow made an incredible save. Paris Barrel slowly closing in on Valu, but not by a lot. And Vexit just dropping away ever so slightly from Paris's. This 4-way battle really started to heat up for P13. Kenners has the AlphaTauri of Maverick right on his tail.
Kenners, Maverick, AJ, and Luppy battling here. It looks to me like Luppy's found his way back into the racing point car finally. So maybe it was just the incredibly cold tyres at the start of the race that was the issue for Luppy. We did see him disconnecting and reconnecting on the formation lap, so that may well have been it. As Ulas picks up a 3-second time penalty, AJ follows suit as well. Ulas currently has exactly 3 seconds down to Iceman, but that gap is expanding rather than the reverse, as Ruben's into the pit, so he reckons it's time to go for full wets from, I think he was in 13th before heading into the pits there in the Mercedes.
Yep, and to be honest, if Ruben's in the same call as Rainbow, again, this isn't a bad decision because it gives that extra info to the driver ahead, and essentially you can use a driver who's all the way down the order, not having a great race as a guinea pig. Either way, Ruben thinks that this is the right point to change over. He's got nothing to lose in his final race in Premier X.
Yeah, Luppy also just spun on the exit of turn 1 there, so he's lost out some time and now finds himself behind Weeze Racing, only ahead of Elon and Ruben. And yeah, as you said, Ruben in his final race in Premier X for now at least. He's going for gold here with this wet tyre call. We'll have to wait and see, keeping an eye on his Delta. It's remained more or less the same since it came out of the pits relative to Elon. Now it's gained rather a lot there in a little chunk. He just lost 0.3 of a second to Elon. So I think Ruben may have jumped the gun just a little bit here on those extreme wet tyres, but could come in towards him at the end of this lap, as he will be getting some heat into them and getting them more into their working range. Up at the very front of the order, Valu's getting a little bit closer to Luca now. It's just dipped into the sort of 7/10, maybe 6/10 of a second mark for the first time. And yeah, it might well be time here as Ruben is starting to close down a bit.
Yeah, he's made a mistake and dropped back, but he was catching up by over a tenth a corner to Elon. So look at the rain is really chucking it down now. And I think there's a Red Bull just going past the pits. That could have been a perfect time for the likes of Kenners or Maverick to dive in. And I think everyone's missed the transition point by a lap. I think Ruben was a lap there too early, but the end of lap 8 was a perfect time to put on those full wet. So that's a big shame for quite a number of drivers.
Plenty of time penalties being accrued thus far in this race as well, as Chegwin, I believe, was the most recent one to pick one up there. You can see them, quite a few of those actually, well, 2 of those are for speeding in the pit lane. That's Paris and Max, who weren't able to get it slowed down in the slippery conditions. You have to remember a new braking point when it's wet to get into the pit lane, and they evidently didn't practice that particular element of the wet conditions around Paul Ricard. And Luca also picking up a 3-second time penalty. That's going to even things out at the front between himself and Valu. There is Marinkello looking to battle with Max, but once again, it's a stout defense from the Renault driver, who is holding on nicely, but Chegwin has been able to catch up to them now. So Max is still losing time, keeping all these guys behind. Now it's Marinkello and Chegwin are the only 2 who are suffering.
Is Luca going to dive into the pits? No, he doesn't. None of the top 3 come into the pits. Will Vexit make the call? No. So all of the drivers think that it is still time for Inters, and actually Ruben's still dropping back from Elon, so maybe I jumped the gun a little bit with that prediction.
Yeah, I wonder if Elon made some kind of, a couple of seconds worth of a mistake and we didn't really catch it, as Maverick looks to have gone past Kenners in their battle. That one's been going on for a while for P13, but it looks like the AlphaTauri driver has managed to get past the Red Bull and up into 13th there, as we still see Marinkello frustrated on the rear wing of that Renault, with Chegg Fried Rice just in contention right now. He'll be hoping they take each other off and he can just drive clean through and up into 9th position. Of course, he managed a really nice finish, I think 6th place finish last time out in Baku, so it wouldn't be on track for his best finish of the season, but if he can make 2 top 10 finishes in a row, that is definitely ahead of where he would have been expecting to be and where we would have expected him to be.
Yeah, Max and Marinkello Marinkello having a great race so far, but Vexit, he's also in a fantastic position because don't forget, Paris Barrel has a 5-second time penalty there. He has to serve in the pit, so Vexit's going to jump ahead, and Vexit's the only man of the top 5 who doesn't have a time penalty currently.
Indeed, he is not, and that might well come to benefit him later on in the race. It's not going to do much right now. He will gain the position from Paris, because Paris does have that 5-second time penalty rather than just a 3, but he's not close enough to the leaders at this stage of the race. He is comfortably gapping Ulas, though, who seems to be in a bit of no man's land in P5. He's comfortably faster than Iceman and not fast enough to challenge Vexit, as we're seeing, talking of challenging, Marinkello and Max once again towards turn 10. But Marinkello takes another sensible pill. He's been taking a lot of those thus far this race. I think we're learning that Marinkello is not an aggressive wheel-to-wheel driver. But if you can just wait for Max to make that kind of mistake, you can take the position away. The Renault driver will fight back, and he certainly is aggressive. Look at that around the outside of turn 12. That would be one hell of a move, but it's not able to come off for the Renault driver, who loses yet another position. Down into 10th he goes. Luca and Iceman, both Haas drivers, they've pulled the trigger. They're into the pits for the extreme wets.
Yep, is this the right call? Both of them jumping in. I wonder if they're going to be a little bit delayed with the double stack, but if they haven't got this right, this could be perfect for Valu to jump ahead of Luca.
Max has lost it. Sorry, Max has lost it in the final corner there. There's a whole cacophony of cars coming into the pits, and there is the Renault of Max. You can see his teammate in the background. As Max, he has lost a lot of positions, I promise. He's just gained a lot from people coming into the pits as well. So it's Luca, Iceman, A2 UK, Maverick, Luppy, Kenners, who have all come in for those extreme wet tyres. Ruben still well off the back of the field, but he is on those as well, as Max picks up a 3-second time penalty to add to the 5-second one he has as well.
Okay, but let's keep an eye on that gap between Luca and Calcifer, because Luca's on those wets. He's catching up to Calcifer. The gap was 6/10 only about 10 seconds ago, so I think Luca might have actually nailed the lap to come into the pit. Will Valu hit in this lap? You'd have to think he will, to try to cover off Luca, unless you think he can stay out on his current intermediate tyres for even longer. But Luca is so much quicker than Calcifer on those intermediates.
I mean, it's not a matter of covering off Luca. Of course, Valu needs to pull an overcut on him to try and get past. The best scenario here for Valu is if he stays out, which he hasn't, and hopes that Calcifer can hold up Luca, and that Luca will get stuck down here in traffic. But given the grip differential here between the Estonian and the Croatian behind, it's only a matter of time before Luca gets past, though he is struggling to hold on to the car through turn 13 there. And actually, Calcifer does stay out. So, oh, wow, into the side of him he goes. There was a bit of lag going on there, and the Haas driver has gone completely round. So this is the opportunity Valu needed. and he will take the lead of this race, no doubt about it. Rainbow goes past Luca as well there, but Rainbow's still yet to go onto the wet tires.
Oh no, Luca is going to be absolutely furious because Valu came out behind Calcifer, so Luca definitely would have been ahead, and I don't know, we need to see another instance of what happened as Luca runs wide. He smashes into the advertisement board, but this is disastrous for Luca. He's going to drop behind possibly Paris Barrel and Vexit as well when they make their pit stops, although Vexit and Paris, they've stayed out for that little bit too long. Surely they all come into the pits at the end of this lap.
It's Paris, Vexit, Ulas, Calcifer, and Rainbow. 5 of the fastest guys in this league who are all still out there on the intermediate tires, backing themselves to make it work in these conditions. Everyone else has now come into the pits for wet. Elon Tusk picked up another 5-second penalty there for speeding in the pit lane, so he joins that particular club. And Max, after such a promising opening stint to this race with that spin on the exit of the final corner, falling all the way down to 19th and last, and that has shades of China about it. As here we see Valu and Calcifer battling. Calcifer has already dispatched one of the front runners on the wet tires, although that was emphatically not his fault. This time it's Valu who can just drive clean around the outside of the Estonian in turn 11 there, and that just shows that it is definitely time for wet tires.
Yeah, but the intermediate tire runners are staying out, and Jacob, I think they're trying to hold her through the storm. They're going to try to wait for the weather to ease up a bit and then put on maybe a fresh set of intermediates to go to the end. You can see Rainbow in the corner of your screen diving into the pit. So the drivers on the intermediates, they can either go to the very end on these intermediate tires, or they can make another pit stop for intermediates in about 4 laps or so and go to the end. I think now they've essentially forced their hand. They've said that we will not pit onto wet tires at this point.
Yeah, they will not allow the rain gods to send them into the pit lane. They will hold up the middle finger and stay out there on those intermediate tires. Instead, we'll have to wait and see whether it works for them. Rainbow has abandoned their company by heading into the pit. He should be out okay, comfortably ahead of Marankello. Big gap forming in the middle of the field. Couple of big gaps, actually. Down between Luca and Iceman, the two Haas drivers. There's 14.8 seconds right now, and that's the gap that Paris, Vexit, and Ulas would be hoping to come into if they did come into the pits. Now, Weez is in the pits again for another set of wet tires. I think he had already pit, so I think he must have front wing damage or something there in the Renault, and it is not a good day for the all-German Renault team here, as they are now 18th and 19th.
And it's also not a good day for the guys still on intermediates, because Valu's closing in by over 2 seconds a lap. The gap between Ulas and Valu is now 2 seconds. It was almost 5 seconds at the start of the lap, and that gap is just tumbling and tumbling down. And Ulas, he's not really dropping that much from a Vexit. And once again, Paris Barrel stays out. Vexit will stay out as well. Does Ulas pit? I don't think he will. So Valu's on a charge, gaining by over 3 seconds a lap. You'll need another 3 seconds to catch up to Vexit. So Vexit and Paris, they need to hope, they need to pray that the rain will start to lighten up.
And you can see just how much of a difference there was in grip through turn 15 there between Valu and Ulas, as the Finnish driver makes light work of the Turk down in towards turn 1. And Valu back up into 3rd position now. AJ picking up yet another 3-second time penalty. There's a lot of those who are going to have to work out what that's going to do to the order at the end of this race. But Luca has managed to get back past Calcifer once again. This time it hasn't ended in tears for the Croatian Haas driver. And Calcifer throws in the towel and comes into the pit on his intermediates. He's going to a set of wets instead. I think he's just actually come back out there just behind Rainbow. So Rainbow has actually managed to get back past Calcifer by undercutting him on those wet tires, just showing how much of a difference there is between those wets and the intermediates. However, if you're Ulas, if you're Vex, if you're Paris Burrell, you don't want to let yourself get too sort of spooked by cars going flying past you, because Ulas was well more than 3 seconds behind Valu before the pit stop phase started. So if the rain lightens up in the next couple of laps, it still might just work out for the intermediate stickers.
Yeah, and of course the drivers, they can be asking Jeff right now, finding out when that rain will lighten up. We don't have access to that information. The drivers will know. Jeff will be giving them, a good number of minutes and a good estimation to when they can hit back on to another set of intermediate tires when that rain will lighten up. Another thing I do want to bring up as well, Jacob, is we saw the guys on these full wet tires, they had to pit at about lap 10, and usually the intermediate or the wet tires, they can only do about 50 to 60% of the race. So I do wonder how worn those full wet will be, because maybe if that rain lightens up right at the end of the race, they're going to be really, really struggling.
Ooh, Ulas has come into the pits. I noticed he spun actually on the exit of turn 12. Lost about 10 seconds in that spin in all. And now he's come into the pits and picked up a 5-second time penalty on top of it. The speeding in the pit lanes of the Turkish driver, it's all falling apart. It fell apart in China, but a bit earlier in the race and in qualifying than it has this time around. But Ulas just cannot string a race together right now. It's only his second race he's participated in the season, but it's not the longest season ever. He'll want to start scoring some better results sooner rather than later. It's not all over for him. He can still manage a decent point scoring finish as we cut on board with Luffy in a furious battle with Ruben and Ken as Ulas's teammates, the 14th, 15th and 16th. Right now, Elon Tusk in close attendance as well. A list of names that's very familiar to those who were with us in Season 1 of Premier X, but now battling over 14th, 15th, 16th and 17th, not for the lower end of the points as we would usually have expected last season. Here comes Luffy, thinking about making a move on Ruben, but will not do so into turn 1.
Yep, and Valu's also really close to Vexit. Now there's just half a second separating the two. I think there's going to be a move fairly shortly. How long can Vexit keep Valu behind? Because don't forget, Valu has a time penalty, Vexit doesn't. So this could end up being the battle for the lead. Here goes Valu.
Valu going around the outside here, making light work of Vexit. Nothing that the British driver could hope to do to battle back there in that situation. And he comes into the pits as well. So not managing to make it from intermediates to intermediates unless he's going to strap on another set of the greens. And I'd be very surprised to see that right now. Paris, the only one holding faith, holding true to the intermediate tires, the promise of the one-stop race, or maybe a two-stop race by the end of it here, as we will just wait to confirm which tires Vexit has gone on to. It's another set of the Inters. Okay, so he's decided they were too worn, but he's not throwing in the towel and going to the wets as we saw Rainbow and Calcifer doing. He thinks it's going to dry up sooner rather than later and get to the sort of intermediate conditions he'll be praying for.
Well, this is so interesting right now, because if the rain doesn't dry up in 1 or 2 laps, I think that's probably too early of a call. But then again, this is probably the perfect lap to, spread those intermediate tires. They had already done about 13 laps. They've got another 12 laps to do. Valu, 1.8 seconds behind Paris Barrel. And don't forget, Paris has to serve 5 seconds in the pit. Valu does not. He just has a 3-second time penalty that will get slapped on at the end of the race. Two completely differing strategies right now, Jacob, and we're going to see which one of them will work out the best.
Yeah, Iceman hasn't exactly mullered into that gap between himself and Vexit ever since Vexit came out of the pits on those Inters. If it wasn't getting towards inter conditions, I would have expected Iceman to absolutely just completely cruise up to the back of him and pass him. His tyres are only 5 laps old. That's hardly anything on a wet set of tyres. As Chegwin actually making it past Ulas, who must have had another moment. Paris has dropped back as well. He's lost the position to Valu there for the lead of this race, and the Finn regained top spot. Into the pits comes Paris, does manage to get it slowed down this time around, and surely this is going to be another set of Inters for him.
So the question that I'm wondering right now, is it a case of the Inters being faster than the wet, or is it just because Vexit has fresh intermediate sods?
He's losing out now, bro. He's losing out now. Iceman is, in fact, he's passing him. Vexit's had a moment. He's lost out to both Iceman and Rainbow through turn 12. He didn't spin all the way around, but is he missing an end plate on that front wing as well there? I think he is, yeah, his right end plate on his front wing, as his teammate's going to be driving past him right now. This is turning into a disaster for Vexit, as it did for Max, as it's done for Wheeze. There's so many drivers who have had such rough times of it in this race, but it's working out okay for Valu, for Luca, and for Iceman, who finds himself in a podium spot right now, but with Rainbow challenging him for it, as Ulas is retired from the race. There's a Calcifer's all over the road there, and I don't know what happened between Rainbow and Iceman, but the Lithuanian has managed to make it past, and I think Ulas just went into the pits to retire there.
Yeah, and Vexit, he's had to cut the corner. He tries to slow it right down to not get a penalty. He makes contact with the rear end of Calcifer. He still gets a 3-second time penalty. Vexit, I think he needs to pit. He needs to get that front wing change.
Ruben's in the pits as well in the Mercedes. He was the first one to come in for wets. Is he going to be the first one to go back out on intermediates, excluding Vexit and Paris? He is. So Ruben thinks it's time for the intermediates now, and he's rolling the dice yet again in this race. Paris Burrell holding on from Calcifer and Vexit for now, but Calcifer will want to get past as quick as possible because he needs to pull a pit stop on these guys before the end of this race.
Yeah, he does indeed, and I think staying out on Inter, trying to turn this into a two-stop race, has not worked out. Paris Burrell and Vexit pay the ultimate price for their sins, and Valu is just going to be able to storm away with the race after the contact between Luca and Calcifer. Saw the former driver, the Haas driver, spinning through the final corner and pretty much just throw any hope of a race win away. The only thing that could really, you know, put Valu back under pressure now is if there was a late safety car.
Yeah, and at the moment, the gaps have now strung out throughout the field. A lot of drivers making a lot of mistakes and building up those gaps as Vexit has to come back into the pits to fix his front wing as well. So it gets even worse for the Englishman. Standing in for the Williams team, his third team in as many races. He's doing all right in the championship. Even after DNFing last time out in Baku, he's fifth in the standings. He doesn't need a result like this if he wants to be trying to get a regular spot in this league and trying to actually be up there in the standings despite being only a reserve driver. He comes on and yet another set of intermediate tyres for him. I think Paris, it might still just about work out for him. He might still find his way onto the podium if it dries up within about 2 or 3 laps. But then Rainbow is now in clean air, having got past Iceman, and he will be gapping Paris significantly right now.
Yep. And let's just keep an eye on that gap between Calcifer and Paris Burrell because it is currently 4.2 seconds. It's kind of holding station. I think they're slowly getting to that crossover, but I think it'll be another 1 or 2 laps before those are top 5 drivers pit for a new set of tyres.
Max has pit, and he's gone on to a fresh set of wets. So he doesn't even think it's time for intermediates yet. And having been forced into the pits, I assume, for a front wing change or something of that kind, he thinks another set of wets is the order of the day, which is very surprising to see, unless he just failed to select the intermediates before coming in. I wonder, though. It does seem like the wets are the better tyres for now, and you can see just how much rain there is in front. So maybe that is the right decision, but I'm surprised he wouldn't have wanted to get his old wets to the end of this race, so he must have had damage of some kind. But yeah, there's so many drivers with such different ideas about the way this is going to go between the wet tyres and the intermediate tyres, as Iceman makes a small mistake through the final corner, taking a bit too much curb on the inside, and that will give Calcifer a little bit of a sniff at trying to get past Iceman sooner rather than later. He knows that the Macedonian is fallible up ahead, but Iceman's still on for his best finish of the season thus far. Currently in 4th, even if he drops down to 5th, he'll still be pretty happy with that, I think.
Yep, and Calcifer all over the back of Iceman. Last time out at Baku was Calcifer ahead of Iceman, and Iceman got front wing damage and wasn't able to continue to charge up the field. Calcifer will be looking to bring home a P4. Paris Burrell now 7 seconds behind Calcifer, really struggling on those intermediate tyres. You can see the rain is torrential, and even if there is spray from Iceman, that is a lot of rain and definitely not time for intermediates. And it seems that the live weather that we brought in for FXR in Season 2 is working wonders and really spicing this race up and confusing quite a lot of drivers.
And this is what we want to see, right? We want to see the drivers uncomfortable, uncertain, not knowing exactly what to do and when, because that is when, you know, as a lot of racing is just about pure pace. But you want to have the ability to make a difference on strategy, to have brave drivers doing the right call at the right time. As Iceman runs wide, he'll try and hold it around the outside for the rest of 11, but cannot do so. And Calcifer moves up into 4th, taking advantage of the mistake from Iceman. I said he looked fallible, and he proves it there.
Yep, Calcifer now 3.8 seconds behind Rainbow. Calcifer could still look for a great comeback drive up into P3 after starting all the way down in P8. And, well, I think he made a mistake as well with the first set of pit stops, and he dropped all the way down to P13. Oh, yes, he started on the hard tyres, so this would be a really good comeback drive for the Estonian. Paris Burrell still dropping back. We still haven't got to that crossover point. Luca keeping the gap to Valu, but right now Valu is just in complete control of the race.
Kenners gets another 3-second time penalty, down in 14th. AJ's making a move on Chegwin. That is for 8th. Chegwin still doing a stellar job right now. And both the Alfa Romeos also doing well to recover from a very poor opening section of this race. Now in 8th and 10th, currently with a Cheg fried rice sandwich between the two of those. But a little bit of a gap down to A2 UK. So Chegwin should be looking to try and consolidate 9th for now. Penalties notwithstanding, of course. And these intermediate tyres still aren't really working right now. Kenners was all over the back of Bexit a couple of laps ago, but I think he actually made a mistake and fell further away. Unless I'm very much mistaken, and maybe that was lucky that actually got past Bexit, or something like that. Anyway, Max managed to make it past Ruben and is now gapping the South African at the very back end of the field. And Paris still can't close down Iceman. That gap is still expanding, although a little bit less every time we go around.
Yeah, it's now starting to drop. That's on the straight. How does it change through the corner? Paris Barrel makes his way through or will be making his way into turn 12. Keep an eye on that gap. Is it dropping? And the answer is it is. I think we've reached the crossover point now, Jacob. It is a time to put on those intermediate tires. Carlsberg and Iceman, they are only, well, Carlsberg's only 10 seconds ahead of Paris, so he's going to come out 10 seconds behind, but he will have slightly fresher intermediates. This is going to be interesting from this point onwards.
I mean, I don't think it's that clear-cut right now. Paris does have considerably fresher tyres than Iceman, and he is, in general, expected to be a faster driver around this circuit than Iceman. So the fact that the gap is remaining about the same right now suggests that we're maybe 1 or 2 laps away from the crossover point right now. I think that the gap is now back up to 8.2
We're in the window. We're in that kind of window.
The Inters are now viable. That is what we know for sure right now. We don't know for sure that they're better, but the gap is getting smaller and smaller now, down to 7.7 after it stayed just around the 8-second mark for a while there. And now, I think when we see a 10th every time it updates pretty much, as we saw for these past few corners there, I think we
Yellow
can start...
flag, that's Max. He's had a spin through turn 10.
Yeah, Max wide through turn 10. It's not his first spin of the race, and he'll be very disappointed with how this went after how promising it looked at the very beginning. Struggling to actually even get back on the road here in the Renault. I don't know if he's thinking about just retiring from this one or what, as he will. 10-second time penalty for exceeding track limits. That doesn't seem like it's a fair penalty, so he might at least get that one removed at the end of this race. But yeah, bit of a disaster for both of the Renault boys, but for Max in particular here.
Yep. Something else I want to bring up is that Chegwin's having a phenomenal race. Also Vexit. So while Paris Baron is closing in onto Iceman, Vexit is actually dropping back a little bit for Luffy. So it's a case of the intermediate tyres working for the McLaren driver, but not working out for Vexit because he had the gap at about 8/10. It dropped to over a second. It's starting to come back down now as Carlsberg and Iceman have jumped into the pits.
That's brave, and they're rolling the dice to try and get on the podium. We've seen so many dice rolls here today, so many shufflings of the deck. And once again, Maranello is going to join them in the pits as well. I think it's just about intermediate tyre time right now that they're coming into the pits. But if I'm Balu, if I'm Luca, I'm staying out on those wets. I've got such a gap. I don't need to jeopardize that by coming into the pits. So I think they can afford to just stay out on the wets to the end of this race. But then again, because they have that gap, they might well want to pit, because if you do the same as everyone else, chances are things are going to stay more or less the same, and staying the same is pretty good for those guys. However, Balu is kind of hamstrung because he doesn't want to pit and then find out that he doesn't have any extra pace over Luca, because he's going to throw the win away if he does that. Vexit's retired. That's in the pit lane. He's gone into the pits and retired from the race. So Williams driver, the stand-in, decides he has had enough and he will not be taking any points from this race, just as he didn't from the last one.
So I think for Luca, he can risk staying out, but I think Valu should make the call to pit, because the Inters are definitely quicker, and the gap between the two compound of tyres will just be increasing over the next few laps. And I think it was Ayrton Senna who said you need to be on the right compound of tyres at the right time. None of this business of, trying to make the tyres last, like we saw from Paris Burrell and Vexit in that wet stint where they stayed on intermediate tyres. And I think Valu and Luca, they should just pit, get on those fresh set of tyres, because those tyres, don't forget, if it was a case of being on Inters in full wet conditions, I think that's fine. But when you are on full wet in Inter conditions, your tyres start to burn up, they start to wear out as well. So it's a much, much worse situation to be in.
but there's only so many laps left in the race. It's only about 4.5 remaining. And I still think Valu won't come into the pits until he sees Luca doing the same. He can afford to wait an extra lap because there's no way Luca's going to pull a 14-second undercut on him. So as long as Luca doesn't come into the pits, there's no real reason for Valu to do that. Chegwin was one of the ones who does decide to go onto those intermediates. Now he has a lot of pace over his teammate Luppy, who kindly gets out of the way. It's usually going to be Luppy flying the flag for the racing point, but in the last couple of races, it's been Chegwin getting the upper hand, and it will be here today as he goes past and up into 11th. He was running in 9th, I believe, before coming into the pits. So he will now be looking to get up to the back of Maverick, passing him as well. Does have some penalties, but so does pretty much everyone else. So we're going to have to wait and see exactly how that shakes out. Iceman all over the back of A2 UK, who's up in 7th right now. Both Alphas have stayed out on those wet tyres, looking to try and maintain track position at the cost of outright pace. But AJ has a Calcifer all over his rear end, and A2 has Iceman all over his.
Yeah, Iceman's going to go for the move down the inside now into turn 8. He'll get it done nice and cleanly. Now it's on Calcifer to jump ahead of AJ, because don't forget, Calcifer's been on these intermediate tyres for a lap. Now going to be 2 laps. Rainbow will Rainbow pit, because if Rainbow, well actually, pardon me, Rainbow hasn't pitted, and because he hasn't pitted, if he does pit now, he will come out behind Calcifer, and we've got to that stage where the drivers have, you know, they've made their call. Paris Burrell, he was 11 seconds behind Rainbow, he's now 7.5, he's gaining by 4 seconds a lap. That gap's going to be increasing. He's going to catch so quickly up to the guys ahead. He's 20 seconds behind Luca. This is Luca's last chance to pit and still come out ahead of Paris. And actually, I think even if he hits now, it's too late. Valu could look to pit. Valu will come out 6 seconds behind Luca. But if Luca pits, that is the P2 gone. So I think Valu, he should know that he's losing a lot of time. He should pit. He'll come out in P2 and he can hunt down Luca. Whereas Luca, I think he needs to risk it for the biscuit.
I'm going to have to respectfully disagree with you on this one. I think they should stay out to the very end of this race. I don't think there's going to be a time where they're losing enough time. Look at the gaps out there at the front. It's 14 between Luca and Valu. It's 15.5 between Rainbow and Luca. So even if Paris does get past Rainbow, who he is still 4.7 seconds behind, it is going to be a long time before he even gets close to
3 seconds in half a lap, though. This is so much more pace. He's going to be, you know, almost 6 seconds a lap. And it's just a case of, you know, you don't know what's right or wrong until you see it back with hindsight, and that's what we're going to be having to discuss after the race. And into the pits there comes Valu. Will it work out? Luca stays out. Luca hasn't got to the pits yet, but he will come out behind Paris. Let's see. And Luca's into the pits.
I don't know why Luca's come into the pits there. Surely you stay out every day there. You just do opposite of what Valu does. If you want to go for the race win, I still don't think Paris would have enough in it to get up to the back of them. But if they're both going to pit, then it's fine for both of them. I don't think Rainbow will be able to. He does stay out, Rainbow, actually. And I don't think he's going to be able to catch up to them either. Rainbow definitely going to be a sitting duck for Paris here, who's cruising right up to the back of the Mercedes, the bottom step of the podium. Neither of them have any penalties right now, and they both go past Luca, who I think might have served. Did he serve a 5-second time penalty? No, I don't think he had one. So he's had a long pit stop for some reason there. Maybe a front wing change or something.
He's going to go behind Calcifer, I think, as well. They're going to be neck and neck on the exit of the pit. Paris will take P2. Calcifer takes P4, but Luca's on fresh intermediate tyres right behind him. This is going to be a 3-lap battle to the very end.
This is a disaster. Luca should have stayed out. It's all gone wrong for the Haas driver. He's up the inside now, forcing the Williams into the advertising boards there. And he makes his way past. Calcifer will not be pleased with that one. And I think we might well see that going to the stewards, as Luca did not leave him much space on the outside of the entry to turn 3 there. Calcifer has regained the position on Luca. I think Luca's having some lag issues in that Haas in this race. That's what we saw when he went into the side of Calcifer earlier on. And it looks like, no, he doesn't have front wing damage at least. Maverick's into the pits as well from what was 12th position. Now he's going to be falling down as he looks for another set of fresh intermediates just for the last couple of laps of this race. And we'll never know what the better strategy to be on was. Rainbow is losing time hand over fist to Paris Burrell, but we'll never know whether it would have been better for Luca to stay out or not. But right now, I don't think he's looking at a podium.
Well, we can keep an eye on Rainbow, see how much time he loses to Paris, and use it as an indicator to see, you know, where Valu would have been roughly. Sure, it's not perfect, but it gives us a pretty good idea. And remember, Paris, he overtook Rainbow on this lap, and he's pulled 6 seconds. So it's almost 7, maybe 8 seconds a lap right now, and Rainbow's staying out. So, you know, that 20-second gap that Value had, it would be dropping by about 8 seconds a lap. It would be tight. It'd be nip and tuck. But I think Value was definitely in the position where he could afford to make that pit stop, because he definitely would have got past Luca anyway and taken the win.
Yeah, for sure. Value, it was a no-brainer for him to come into the pits. It's Luca that I think should have stayed out. He should have done the opposite of whatever Value did, and most importantly, he shouldn't have taken that pit stop. It all went wrong, and he lost so many positions there. 3 positions, critically losing out to Calcifer. That's the biggest deal right here, because he cannot just drive straight past the Williams up ahead. Those are 2 fast drivers on similarly aged, relatively fresh intermediate tires. It's not like Calcifer's on the wets like Rainbow is. He's not going to be easy meters. They are about to find Rainbow to be, and the Lithuanian will just have to wave as these guys go flying past on the first part of the Mistral straight here. Is basically like he's being lapped. The blue flag's not literally out, but they may as well be.
Here
but now
comes
Luca
Luca.
trying to capitalize on the situation. Deep up the inside of turn 8, and Calcifer has gone flying off the road. That is not what I expected to see the Williams doing there whatsoever. And Luca and Calcifer come to blows yet again. And Calcifer comes off far, far worse.
There have been sparks flying since that incident in the final corner. There were sparks flying down into turn 3 a couple of laps ago, and that time, Calcifer, I think he squeezed Luca too much, and Luca had none of it at all. And Calcifer came out worse. I think Luca's probably in for a penalty for what happened before, but Calcifer might be in for a penalty for that recent incident. And I think, Jacob, you might have to have a look at that in your race analysis video. Also, we have our votes out for driver of the day, so make sure to get on that and vote for who you think was driver of the day tonight. Rainbow still only a second ahead of Calcifer. That's the pace difference right now between the wets and the inters. Calcifer and Iceman on the back of Rainbow, final lap of the race, Jacob.
Yeah, Value comfortably leading out at the front. It's 12 seconds there, but Calcifer has already regained Rainbow despite that huge incident we saw him having. So there is a huge pace difference now between the inters and the wets, and maybe it would have all fallen apart for Luca on this final lap of the race had he stayed out. As things stand, he's on track for 3rd, but that might well be taken away from him depending on if there's any post-race penalties he needs to watch out for. Calcifer making light work of Rainbow, and Iceman surely will have enough time to do the same on this final lap. He will gain 5th position, and that will be his best result of the season. In fact, he's going to gain it through penalties anyway, and he might even look to gain 4th away from Calcifer if he can just get past Rainbow nice and quickly.
Rainbow.
He didn't need that to happen in front of him. And now a 3-second time penalty for avoiding it. Surely that can be taken away from the Macedonian driver there, because he was avoiding an incident by running out wide there. So I think that should be taken away from his final time. So if he can stay within 3 seconds of Calcifer, that could be a huge deal right there to snag 4th away and get the Haas team for a provisional 3rd and 4th place finish. But he's just gained another 5-second penalty for cutting a corner and gaining a place we can both agree that that's utter nonsense as well. Up towards the front though, Value, he's about to come across the line in the Alpha Tauri and win the French Grand Prix by a comfortable margin. The Finn does it again, 13 seconds back to Paris Burrell, who was penaltyless. One of the only drivers, the only driver to be penaltyless at the end of the race. But it's not enough to claim the victory away from Value. It's still 9.6 seconds at the flag. Here comes Luca up towards the line. A controversial race for the Croatian driver in the Haas, but he's done a good job. In terms of raw pace, at least looks like he might have been able to challenge Value for the win, but wasn't able to do so. Calcifer across the line in 4th. He will be fuming in that cockpit. Iceman comes across in 5th. I think he will take that position away from Calcifer if those penalties are removed, because he came across the line 2.8 seconds behind the Estonian. Rainbow on those very aged wet tires manages to limp home in 6th, just ahead of Marin Keller, who couldn't steal the position away from the Mercedes. And then Chegg Fried Rice on for an 8th place finish as well. Another great result for the Racing Point driver, who is stepping up here in the new and improved Premier X Season 2. The Alfa Romeos look like they're going to be able to claim 9th and 10th as well for yet more solid points for the team in 4th.
Yeah, Alfa Romeo have a decent result. Elon Tusk at P11, but Chegwin, he's been kind of my standout performer this season from where I expected him to be. As Ruben gets past Elon on those wet tires right at the very end. And Ruben will take P11 in his farewell race. He'll drop behind after penalties. and he'll drop down behind his old adversary of Maverick for P13. But what a crazy, crazy race, Jacob.
Yeah, there was a lot to talk about in that race, that is for sure. The strategies were all over the place, and I loved it. Even though there was a huge margin for the victory in the end, it never felt nailed on. There was a lot of different permutations that could have gone on there, and there was battling throughout the field all the way through as well. Driver of the day, Ruben, why not? He's retiring at the end of this race from Premier X, and I think the game at least decides that he deserves a driver of the day. It was a solid race from him, and he definitely made some very brave decisions as well. But Valu was once again proved himself to be a cut above the rest.
Yeah, Valu, he did everything right. He pulled out such a big gap that, well, you know, he could afford to stay out for too long on those wets and pit for the enters at the end, but that was absolutely insane. So, final results then, Valu takes a win from Paris Barrel, Luca ahead of Calcifer after late drama between the Haas and the William drivers. Iceman takes P5 ahead of Rainbow. Marancello, Czech Fried Rice as the Alfa Romeo pair of A2 and AJ complete the top 10. We're going to be heading into a short break, but when we're back, we will be back with our driver interview. So if any members or any viewers have any questions they would like us to ask, make sure to drop it in the chat, and we will do our very best to get those through to the drivers. Stay tuned. We'll be back in just a short bit. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are here for our post-race interviews. We have our race winner, Valu, P2 Paris and our third place man Luca joining us, as well as well, the in-game driver of the day anyway, Mr. Ruben. We're going to start off with our race winner as always, Valu. It was, as always, it was a pretty splendid performance from yourself, but at the start it did look a bit questionable. You were stuck behind Luca and you couldn't get past. Did you think that, this might be a P2 for you, or, did you have faith that you would be able to find a way past?
I had faith that I would be faster on wets because I had my off diff turned up, and that's not that amazing with inters. So I was just waiting for the pit stops.
When the Haas drivers of Luca and Iceman dived into the pits, they dived in, I think it was a lap or two before you. Do you think that was the right lap to pit in hindsight, or would you stick with your guns and stay out for a couple of laps?
Yeah, I think the right time to pit was when Luca pitted, because Jeff told me to pit like after first sector that lap. So if Luca didn't do something in the last corner, I think he would have had like 2-second lead.
Okay. And then right at the end, you were still on those wet tires as the track started to dry up. You ended up going for the inters right at the end. Do you think you should have pitted a little bit earlier? What was the thoughts going through your head in terms of strategy calls?
Well, I had pit window to everybody else other than Luca, so I was just waiting for the wets to overheat like so badly that Luca cannot stay on the track and just to win.
Okay. Well, congrats again, Valu, for taking your second win of the season. Great to see you back on the podium after, well, the amount of unfortunate incidents that happened to you in Baku.
Thank you.
Right. So, Paris, P2, a bit of a crazy race. First off, I just want to ask you, you decided to go for the medium tires. I thought at the start that was right, and then the rain started coming down on the formation lap. At that point, did you think that it would be a really tricky race against the guys who had started on the soft tires?
Yeah, from that point, I sort of knew it was going to be a bit of an uphill battle, and because those guys would have a lot more grip off the line and in the first couple of laps. But I was hoping usually the harder compounds are better as it transitions, which it was a little bit, but just not enough to make as much of a dent as I wanted. And with custom weather, you don't really know exactly when it's going to switch over. So when it started raining on a formation lap, I was just like, damn.
Yeah. Well, at least you didn't do a Calcifen start on the hard tires, because his start was not the greatest as a result. You also decided to try to go for that two-stop strategy of, inters and then hold it through that entire wet stint. And I'm guessing with every lap that passed, when everyone else was on those wet tires, you must have been thinking, do I just bite the bullet and pit now? How close were you to switching to, I guess, the optimal strategy?
I was thinking about it initially in the first couple of laps when I stayed out. I was like, maybe go back on the wets. But once you hit the sort of point of no return, you just have to commit to it. And everyone that behind me that sort of like changed their minds, they just ended up having a worse race. So once you get past like 2, 3, 4 laps, once you go past like 3, 4 laps, then you just have to commit to it and just drive straight through it until it becomes inters again.
And at the very end of the race, I was asking Valu when he switched back over to the intermediate tires, did you think, they might not pit and, you might be able to take a late last gasp charge for the win?
I was hoping they'd have to pit at some point because usually with the wets, they just burn up. Whereas the intermediates, there's a lot of understeer. But I prefer understeer to have the tires overheat. But when they all pitted at the same time, I was like, maybe there's a bit of hope. But I knew Value had like a massive pit window or like basically an unclosable gap. So there's nothing I can really do unless he makes a mistake or one of his tires blow up. He had enough to pit back on inters and keep with the lead.
Well, after the disaster that happened to you in round 1 in China, it's great to see you on the podium to take that P2. So congratulations on the result.
Thank you very much, man.
Okay, Luca, this is, I feel where the interviews will get a bit spicy because I I mean, it was a great start from you. You know, you were leading the race. You had that time penalty, but so did Valu. Everything looked under control. You pitted on the perfect lap for the intermediate tires. And then there was that incident with Calcifer in the final corner. One of many incidents that occurred with Calcifer over the course of the race. But just talk us through that first incident for now.
There is nothing to talk about. Then I just lost it on the traction. It's not his fault, only mine. And yeah, driver error by me and nothing else. I mean, I cannot say it's Calcifer's fault because he was just on his line and nothing else. I just lost it, basically, nothing else.
Okay, in that case, we apologize because we thought we had seen some contact. But as the race did progress, you know, you managed to claw your way back up to P2. You were having still a good drive. And I guess just like Valley, you know, you stayed out for a really long time on those wet tires. What was the thoughts really regarding strategies on when you wanted to pit over to intermediates? What were you kind of waiting for?
I mean, I was thinking that the wets are gonna go to the end, as the weather wasn't really getting any better, and the pace was quite okay. I had wing damage, but yeah, I wasn't losing as much time, and I think I was having the safe P2. But then at the end, really, the tires just started to overheat too much, and then yeah, I just saw Paris was catching a lot to Rainbow, and then that was the point I thought, yeah, why not pit and just take a safe podium, and then it will probably be taken because of the incident with House I had after. But yeah, I don't know.
And then I think it was on the final lap or the penultimate lap of the race, we saw you side by side with Calcifer going down into turn 3. I think you ended up coming out ahead, and then the next time we looked, you had dropped behind. And then there was that incident going down into turn 8 where it looked like you were pretty much wheel to wheel on the inside on the approach to the bus stop chicane. So yeah, could you talk us through those two incidents from your perspective?
You mean the penultimate lap? I think it
Yes.
is. Yeah, I mean, I just went for it. I had nothing to lose basically because Rainbow got a bad exit because of the old wets. I just took the opportunity. I saw a bit of space on the inside, but then suddenly when I got on the inside, Calcifer wasn't moving to the right. I don't know. I don't see a reason why, but yeah, he just pushed me into the off track, and then he just died by himself because I had to basically brake and stay into right a bit to not go fully deep, and then he just stayed into me and died basically. I don't know. The stewards will say was wrong and no. I don't know. I'm not gonna say anything to not get fully attacked by everybody, but okay.
Probably a wise decision from yourself. We'll have to see what the stewards will say. I'm sure Jacob will be asking for your footage and to have a nice look at that incident as well for next week. Ruben, on to you. Your final race in FXR, or final race of this season anyway. Hopefully we do see you back for next season, but is this the race you had envisioned? Is this a race result that you're happy with?
I mean, if you think about it, I was the one pioneering the tire decisions the whole way around, and I don't think there's a better way to go out than to be the pioneer of the field when it comes to a certain thing in the race. It didn't really help me. I lost a good few seconds every time I went onto tires a few laps early. But I think I was the guy who told everyone, yeah, it's time to go into wets now, because I was starting to catch them after I lost 15 seconds. So that's not the worst way to go out, in my opinion. And I still have like a few penalties to remove that the game just gave me, so I can still get 11th, which isn't a bad day in the office, I think.
Well, I was saying at the end, you know, you dropped behind Maverick, and surely you can't finish behind Maverick on your final race.
Oh no, it's not acceptable.
Right. Thanks, Ruben. Jacob, I'll throw it to you now if you've got any questions for our 4 drivers.
I mean, honestly, I think you covered everything I was going to ask. So I think, as far as I'm concerned, I'm happy there.
All right. Well, there is something you can still do for us, Jacob, because I've looked at the driver of the day votes, and it's currently tied between Iceman, Luca, Paris, Rainbow, Ruben, Ulas, and Valu. So
Hold on.
wait, no, Paris has 2 votes now. So Paris, congratulations, you are our driver of the day right at the last gasp.
He probably voted for himself.
I haven't yet. I was about to.
I was gonna say I'm gonna do
voted
it
for
as
Valu.
well.
It does sound like rather a lot of people might have voted for themselves. The Ulas vote stands out to me as one that perhaps seems a little odd there, but yeah, no, I think Paris, pretty decent call for it. It was brave strategy, and it worked out pretty well in the end.
Well, thank you to all of our drivers for joining us for the post-race interviews. If anyone hasn't who is watching, make sure to drop a cheeky old follow on Twitch and on Twitter, and you can join the Discord server as well to keep up to date with everything happening Formula X racing related. There's an Assetto Corsa Competizione League that is starting up as well on Saturdays, so make sure to get involved with that. You can ask Maverick or Ruben for more information regarding the GT3 League. But for myself and Jacob, that is all. We will be back next week, Friday evening, for some Silverstone action for round 4 of the championship. And as usual, D2 Division 2 will be racing on Wednesday evening and Division 1 on Thursday evening. Make sure to tune in for it all because it is some very, very spicy action in all 3 leagues. Thank you, everyone, again for tuning in. And until next week, stay fast. We'll see you next time.
Hold me close till I get up. Time is barely on our side. I don't wanna waste what's left. The storms we chase are leading us, and love is all we'll ever trust. Yeah, no, I don't wanna waste what's left. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, till my shadow turns to sun.